I hit a deer at 75 miles an hour and walked away from the experience.
That's crazy.
On a motorbike?
On a motorcycle, yeah.
Jeez.
On the highways in Montana.
Did you land in water? Like
Right. It's just like best case scenario. Like the deer hit me going perpendicular to the highway, like full speed. So it kind of hit my fork and then swept me. So I didn't hit the deer and then go over. The deer hit me and then we kind of all slid down the highway together next to each other, like rolling, tumbling.
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
So what's going on with your wardrobe?
This is a plug for the YouTube. I spilled a soda on myself on the way in here, and it's root beer, so it was brown, so I didn't want it to stain, so I went to the bathroom and blotted it off, and it looks like my nipple's leaking. So that's the clickbait you need for the YouTube.
Sure.
Just one round, wet blotch of shirt right where the old nip is.
I did have in our reminders to plug the YouTube. I think you just did that.
Yep, so that's my job done. You're welcome.
But yeah, please head on over to the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Is that the correct order of operations?
Yeah, I mean, any order works because all three are great.
Yeah.
But all three together are the best.
Yeah.
Versus one or two.
Also, we still have that kick-ass sign, which I'll eventually put in the correct position on the wall, but it'll make your viewing experience. If Chaunce's wet nipple space shirt wasn't enough.
Yeah, if you're not the audience to come for the wet nipple, maybe come for the sign.
Come for the nipple, stay for the sign. Next reminder is if you're taking on a long-distance trek in 2025 and you want your journey featured on an awesome platform, hit us up. The link to apply to be a blogger is in the show notes. For next year, I should say 2025, we've got an awesome array of perks for you guys, gear discounts with some of our favorite brands. We're going to be doing mail drops for some of our top contributors, and one lucky blogger will get flown out to Denver to be on the podcast at the end of the year. So lots of cool stuff happening there. Also currently accepting vlogger applications. So if you're going to be YouTubing your hike, hit us up as well. Lastly but not leastly is Patreon. We should probably do some more Patreon content. It's been a minute. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to plug Patreon, is by admitting that we've dropped the ball.
We got good feedback on Jabba on Patreon. I saw that Fancy Feast commented on something.
Yes. Actually, that'll be foreshadowing because I think there was a reference to a Patreon episode that we did from Fancy Feast. So maybe that's what you were referring to.
No, she was quoting Jabba.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, she also sent us a mailbag that is in
that's
reference
separate.
to a Patreon episode.
Separate.
But yeah, we are very appreciative of your guys' support. If you guys just want some additional content, we usually do 20 to 30 minute episodes with our guests on a topic that's not covered during the standard interview. But if there's also content that you guys want to hear that we are not putting out through the podcast as is, let us know. We're down to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do so for as little as $5 per month, patreon.com/backpackerradio.
I also have been getting DMs. I've had 2 people ask about the hiker book bundle, if that would be available this year.
Yeah,
So
it is available.
We have that link.
Reminders, Zach, to make it available.
Yeah, I was like,
do you have books?
Do I? Yeah, I have books.
Okay, good.
Do I have books? Of course I have books.
Okay.
I have books.
Sweet. And yeah, the holiday book bundle, that'll be available at the Trek store, store.thetrek.co. Obviously, we'll also include a link in the show notes, but you guys get that at a 33% discount. Retails for $60. We're selling it for $40. So Merry effing Xmas and also all the other holidays.
Mm-hmm. Happy everything.
Yeah. Okay, no more beating around the bush. Let's get right to today's interview with Carson Oliver. Chauncey, I'm going to let you take the intro.
Hi, welcome to Backpacker Radio. This is Chauncey.
We're at the interview part.
And now for our interview with Carson Oliver. Why am I doing this? For the effect? Is there a joke about me? Oh, no. Carson Oliver is an accomplished thru-hiker and biker, having completed the PCT in 2019, followed by the calendar year Triple Crown in 2023. In addition to hiking, Carson has biked across the United States and also works as a mountain biking guide in Moab. Thanks for coming.
That was good.
That was pretty good. And for you, that was like an 8.
I knew there was an ulterior motive here.
You've been practicing.
Yeah, for 6 years now.
So Carson, thank you for joining us. What is your trail name?
Anita.
That's right. I knew that.
Anita trail name.
What's the story? You don't have one, so you need one?
I mean, that's the story basically. 2019, found myself hiking on the PCT with a bubble, with a tramley. Everyone had trail names except me. It's like a month in, and we were at a bar, and somebody was like, "Hey, you need a trail name?" And I was like, "Yeah, I need a trail name." And then she was like, "There it is." So thank you. Shout out R2 for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb.
How did you go a month without getting one? Were you deflecting? Were people trying to give you and be like, "Hey, you're booger nose" or whatever?
I think I was just trying not to do anything stupid. Just like, really focusing on not messing up.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember like deflecting anything.
Okay.
It just happened that way.
Yeah. And PCT was first backpacking trip?
Yeah. First, third actual overnight backpacking trip. I did my first backpacking trip the year prior in 2018 in Medicine Bow, Wyoming. And then a couple weeks later in Glacier. And then that's when I heard about the PCT. My buddy and I were on a road trip. And then we saved up money to travel for a whole year. So we were like planning on going to Asia after we traveled across America, got into backpacking, and then we're like, oh, this is sweet. Oh, the PCT sounds fun. And then we went to Asia. And then after we got over there, we're like, hey, instead of spending a year in Asia, we have the budget to do the PCT starting in 5 months. So we just like traveled around Vietnam and Laos and trained up and bought gear and did our research and then flew straight to San Diego and jumped on the PCT.
Damn.
Yeah.
So most of the people that we interview on this podcast, I think, would describe themselves as thru-hikers, hiker trash, kind of that vein. Based on the conversation we've had, it seems like your adventuring is much more broad-based than that. How would you describe yourself, generally speaking?
Ooh. Yeah, just seeking new experiences, I think. Like, I like travel. I like the backcountry, and like I like being on a trail is my favorite thing,
Mm-hmm.
And the mode of that can change, whether it's mountain biking or hiking, or like I was just talking to my buddy last night about getting into trail motorcycle riding. It's like if I'm in the backcountry with some buds, like I'm probably happy. Like I haven't got into snowboarding or skiing yet, but I'm like I'd probably love that because you're in the backcountry and it's just like you're traveling in the mountains. And so yeah, like I'm definitely a cyclist at first. I started cycling as a way to commute in New York City, and then I like realized like, oh, this is cool. I like the cardio. I like the runner's high and covering distances. So I started riding my bike further, and then that just slowly developed into riding across the country. And then, like I said, just like found backpacking for the first time in my life. Like I wasn't outdoorsy as a kid, and then just like heard about the PCT. The idea grew. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, like I like to say yes to things, and I'm adventurous, and like if something piques my curiosity, like I don't know, I could become obsessed with it, and I guess that's what happened with backpacking and hiking. So
yeah. You're from New York City?
I'm from Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah, moved to New York when I was 20.
Okay.
Kind of had an opportunity to work for a summer. I was like, okay, cool, I'll go for a summer and then go back to Phoenix, and then just got sucked in, and then ended up there for like a total of 7 years. I've moved there 3 times, so 5 years the first time. Kind of needed a fresh start. I was kind of like plateaued at my job, and then that's when my buddy and I decided to travel for like a year, and kind of just fell in love with the West on that trip, and then slowly ended up back west. Like didn't really appreciate the desert when I was living in Phoenix. I was kind of like in the grid in the suburbs, and then like later in life, after like going back to Phoenix and hiking and mountain biking all around the desert, I'm like so in love with the desert now, which I wasn't as a kid, which is interesting.
So that's my question, is what is it like growing up in Phoenix or the suburbs of Phoenix?
Yeah, it's just a grid. It's like a concrete jungle. Like I guess like once I bought my Jeep when I was 17, me and my friends would like drive up north just to beat the heat like once or twice a month in the middle of the summer, just to like go swim in a creek. We'd take tents and like sleep off the car, but I'd never like hiked. Like we would drive up and car camp. So like I guess there's like a taste of sleeping outdoors when I was in high school, but like didn't care for hiking. Like hiking was boring to me,
Yeah.
So didn't ride bikes or anything.
You mentioned weather and heat in Phoenix. I haven't been to Phoenix since like early 2000s, but is Phoenix okay? Because everything I see about them online is like it's becoming uninhabitable.
Yeah.
It's like the temperature there is insane, and I'm not there, so I don't know. It could be the internet, but it doesn't sound great.
It's real. Like every year is worse than the year prior. It's like the meme where it's like, this is fine. The room is up. Yeah.
That was the meme was created in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's the meme.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's still growing. Like, I don't know how people still live there. All my family has moved away at this point. It's too hot, but it's great for the wintertime. When I was guiding in Moab the first 2 years, I would winter in Phoenix and ride my bike in a t-shirt all winter in my off season. So like, it's great for that. Like, I could see myself being a snowbird at one point. That's someone who lives in the desert in the winter and elsewhere in the summer.
And
like,
also the desert in the
yeah. But no, I don't know. It's rough. Like I tried to avoid it at all costs in the summertime. It's like.
Is that sad having it be like where you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, I sense a giant mass migration happening maybe towards the Great Lakes, like in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like there's a water crisis. Like Vegas seems to be one of the only cities who's like proactive about, not letting anybody build a new lawn and like giving people benefits to like changing their lawns to rock desert landscapes and stuff. So it's like Vegas gives me hope that big cities can like get on top of it, but like we need to speed this up quickly. And Phoenix is not so much, I don't know, is doing those things like Vegas is doing. So we'll see. It's definitely sad, like, but it's like somebody said if the grid went out in Phoenix in the middle of the summer, it'd be like the biggest like humanitarian crisis we've ever seen, because it's like it's just too hot. Like people die when their AC breaks. It's like it's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like if that happened, that would be
go in the wintertime. You're gonna love it. When it's cold here, go there in January, February. Go hiking. Like I'll give you recommendations. Like there's a lot of beauty around Phoenix in Phoenix, and so but not in the summer.
Yeah,
stay inside.
So you mentioned that you're very adventurous. You were just talking. You just wrapped a massive Grand Canyon rafting trip. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about your backpacking, but where do you suspect this adventurous energy came from?
That's a great question. I never really thought about that. I think it's just like it just slowly developed. Like it wasn't. I don't know. It was like going back to my buddy and I my buddy Kenny, who I also hiked with on the PCT. His name was Big Gulps, is his trail name. Is
that a Dumb and Dumber reference?
Yes. Wow. I don't know if that's deep cut. Nice. Good work.
Proud of you, bud.
Right in my age window right there. Yeah, that was perfect for me.
Incredible. We were both working at a bar in New York, and we're like, okay, we've been here for a few years. Like, let's do something new or just travel and then come back here. At least we traveled. So we're like, okay, we traveled to Southeast Asia in 2017 for 3 weeks. So we fell in love with Vietnam, and we're like, okay, let's save up money for the next year and come back here for a year so we can like really get to know this country and this region. And we're like, okay, well, if we're going to travel overseas for a year, we're like, let's do a road trip around America so we could say hi to all of our family and friends, and then we'll go to Asia. So like, we're like, oh, should we get a car? We're like, let's do motorcycles. We're like, I've never owned a motorcycle before, and he had once, I think. And so we're like, okay, well, if we're gonna get motorcycles, let's get camping gear so we can camp off our bikes. And then we're like, well, we have camping gear, so if we get backpacks too, we can park our bikes in national parks and then go on hikes. So it's like just slow rolled into what we are, how we are today. Like he's outdoorsy, super outdoorsy now. He still lives in New York City, but hikes all the time, is upstate, and has done the long trail through New York State. So
did you guys do motorbikes in Vietnam? Is that part of what prompted the thought? Because I know that's super popular.
We did. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. So there was 3 of us in 2017. We got motorcycles. We bought them and little tiny 150 cc's and traveled around. And then, so that was like our first taste of a motorcycle, and then got big bikes for America.
Did you do the north to south?
That time we just did the northern half. We did Hanoi to Da Nang, Hoi An. And then when we went back when we were there for 5 months, we did north to south. So we went Hanoi, we did the northern Ma Pilang or Hajiang Loop, and then we ended up going south. We cut over through Laos for a month, and then got all the way to Saigon when we sold our bikes. But it was 5 months. Like we would, like we were focused on training for the PCT, so we would just like go on Google Satellite, find a little town that looked like it had mountains or trails or back roads, and then just ride our bikes there, get a hotel room for 3 nights, and then just like explore the town. So it was like cool to like really get to know the country at a slower pace, at a 3-mile-an-hour pace, and like we'd be in one town for 4 days, and we realized like each town had their own like special dish, so we'd like try to figure out what that food was and it's like special in that town. And then we'd be like, okay, I think we've hiked all the roads in this little town. Like we would just ride our bikes 2 hours down the road and then set up again for 4 days and just hike around. So it was like and after having like been bartending for so many years and having been so social, like that was such a good break for us to just like read books and hike. And like we didn't go out, like we stuck to ourselves and just like kept it quiet. And then I don't know, it was like decompressing after so many New York City years. But yeah,
I studied abroad in Thailand, and I backpacked a bit after I studied abroad, like in the surrounding countries. And one of the things you'd hear about doing the bikes north to south in Vietnam was how dangerous it was. Like I had a friend that did it, and all the professors were trying to talk her out of it.
Yeah.
Did you guys find being on the roads to be sketchy, or is that overhyped?
I could see it. It could be very overwhelming for somebody, but having ridden, like we both commuted on our bicycles in New York City, so like we kind of got the overstimulation, the traffic, like how to flow with things, because in Southeast Asia, as you know, there's no traffic lights. Like you have to point your tire where you want to go and hold that line and just like
commit.
Read people's tires, read their eyes, see where they're looking. And so I think those skills we developed in New York City, but like I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. But yeah, I mean, it can be sketchy, but I don't think it's like you're on small bikes. So you're not going more than 45 miles an hour. So like, yeah, you can screw up and fall, but like you're not going to crash at 80 miles an hour. But that being said, the third friend that we were with, it was his first time. I taught him how to ride a bicycle just a year prior.
Uh-oh.
He grew up in New York City, born and raised, still has never driven a car. Taught him how to ride a bicycle, and then we took him to Vietnam, and we're like, you're going to be great. And he was great. And he was like this bigger dude, and it was like so funny to be going through traffic in Hanoi, like these giant intersections with no traffic lights, and we would always like ride behind, and you could just see him because he's a big dude in a sea of like smaller people, and like, he was just like, oh, you got it. Like it got a little sketchy at times, but like he did fine, never crashed. So it's like he proved us. I don't know. Proved your professor wrong, I guess.
But Jack, you got to see pictures of the bikes over there. Like even in Thailand, it was wild. You'd see 6 people, like a full family, on one bike, and they'd have the kids fit around, and then they'd all have the grocery bags. So the bike would be like this wide, because it would be like husband, wife, 2 kids, kid on the back, everyone holding grocery bags.
Yep.
Insane.
Just a clown car of bike.
Yeah.
The driver would have a kid in his arms on the lap. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
So in your initial outreach to us, and we can skip this if you want, and I totally understand, but you had mentioned there was a tragic incident that had happened in, I gather, your childhood, or maybe not quite that early, that also kind of spurred you down this path. Is that something that you feel open to talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. It was only 9 years ago, so like I was 22 when it happened, but my father got murdered. It was a weird like series of events where my parents got divorced a few years prior, and then my mom like got better mentally. Like you could see her recovery, and then my dad kind of declined. So the last few years of his life, it was like very, very rough to like be, I don't know, his son, and like he just declined, and like his mental health declined, and he got like into drugs. Like it was very apparent, like he was like selling all of his stuff in his house to like sell drugs, do drugs, whatever. Like it was just bad, and like was hard to have a normal conversation with him. He was like talking about like, you know, crazy conspiracies and just like would never ask you how you're doing. And then I think I don't know the details of what happened, and I could probably find them out, but like I don't know, I guess I'm protecting myself and have the closure that I needed. But I think it was just like a big drug deal gone wrong with him and his roommate, and then he just got found in the middle of the desert in Arizona, like in the trunk of a car.
Oh shit.
Yeah, some like Breaking Bad shit. But I don't know. It's like in the last like few years, I think I've come to term with the fact that like I felt a lot of relief when he died. You know, I think I was feeling guilty about that for, you know, through a lot of my grief, feeling that way. But you know, I just like realized like maybe like 6 months before he died, I kind of like gave up hope that he would, you know, come back around and be the dad that I knew him to be. And then once I kind of gave up hope, I was actually able to have a relationship with him again, because it wasn't like I was hurting myself every time I interacted with him or saw him. It was just like, I'm taking care of you now. I'm 22. I'm an adult. Like, my sister, unfortunately, was a little bit younger than me when it all happened. So I think maybe a little bit harder on her. You know, it's hard on everybody. Like his mom, you know, had it the worst. Like, but in the last like few years, like she's laughing again, and she's like the joyful grandma that I've always had. And it's been 9 years now. It'll be 10 years. It'll be a decade next year. And it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like grief is just fascinating. I don't know if you guys have lost family members or loved ones or like close people, but like, it's just, I don't know. It's a fascinating thing that I feel like people don't really talk about or like express. And, I mean, going back to what you said about like how that might have like inspired me to do these adventures and travels and live the life that I do. And I think it's just life is short. Like, I mean, that's just the cliche, but like, you know, language fails and that cliche wraps up like that feeling of like, oh shit, like it slaps you in the face. Like, you know, you can be gone. Like, I don't know, just make the most of this gift that we have to be alive and take advantage of like beautiful places. And I think that's what I've found like through that slow roll is like I am happiest when I'm outside and happiest when I'm on a trail or moving towards a big goal or just like I don't know, living off of what I have on my back. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, appreciate you for asking and bringing it up.
Yeah. Was the PCT in any way to process that? I guess that would have been 4 or 5 years after that happened. I guess that's a long time, so maybe you'd already processed it, but I'm just curious to know how that interfaced. Yeah,
I know a lot of people like intentionally use through hikes and long trails as a way of like processing like major life events. I didn't necessarily have that intention going into it, but yeah, like I think going that pace and I don't know, just like feeling those moments of bliss, like when you're on top of a ridgeline in the Sierra, like I don't know, it just makes you feel alive. And like you know, in a lot of those moments, like you're like, I'm wishing that I could have the opportunity to take my dad to these places and experience these things with him, you know. And you know, it's unfortunate I won't be able to, but like I guess I never really thought about that, like how I process it. But I don't know, I think the PCT just unlocked like something in me that was just like, this is how I want to spend my life. Like I'm happy to work my ass off to get to a point where I have money in my bank account and all the gear on my back to do things like this, and I'm going to keep doing that throughout my life. And you know, knowing that he'd be proud of the way that I'm living, and you know, it's like, I don't know, it's interesting. So yeah.
Obviously want to talk a lot more about backpacking.
Yeah.
I have a note here that I can't get past is your moto camping trip in 2017 hit an animal at a fairly high speed.
Yeah. Also another event that made me realize that life is fragile and I'm happy to be alive, but I hit a deer at 75 miles an hour and walked away from the experience.
That's
somehow.
crazy.
On a motorbike?
On a motorcycle, yeah.
Jeez.
On the highways in Montana.
Did you land in water? Like
Right. I it's just like best case scenario, like I didn't have health insurance because I'd been bartending and you just don't have health insurance, and it's a great country when it comes to things like that. So I did spend a lot of money on gear. Me and my buddy, we were like, all right, if we're not going to have health insurance, like we're going to buy that $500 jacket, those $300 pants that have like skid proof helmets, boots, gloves, like the whole deal. And the deer hit me going perpendicular to the highway, like full speed. So it kind of hit my fork and then swept me. So I didn't hit the deer and then go over. The deer hit me, and then we kind of all slid down the highway together next to each other. Like the deer kind of flew off, but me and my bike, I remember like sliding, looking over and sliding next to it, rolling, tumbling. Eventually I like ripped through all of my clothing and I got a bunch of road rash, mainly on my butt. But you know, sore thumb, sore ankle. But I was like, oh, like a sore ankle, like I busted my boot open. Like if I didn't have that boot, that would have been a blown up foot. Or, you know, like my sore thumb, like if I didn't have those good gloves, it could have been a broken hand, you know? So I was just like, I think the fact that I didn't actually fly off my bike, I kind of just went down and slid for whatever, 100, 200 feet. That everything just came together, and so my buddy was behind me on his motorcycle. One deer flies in front of me, so I roll off the throttle, and then I throw him a hand, like, just like, don't pass me or do anything stupid, keep an eye out. And as soon as I did that, the other deer hit me. And he said, when I hit the ground, my water bladder, which was in my jacket, and I had like the Camelback, it exploded when I hit the ground. He said he thought it was like all my guts, and
oh, no.
he said he's like, I thought I watched you die.
I'm sure there's probably like deer bits mixed in there too that would make it
believable.
believable.
All over my, probably, you're right. The deer
Yeah.
probably exploded. I didn't think about that either.
Yeah,
There's probably a lot of things flying in
happening.
fragments. So he slows down. Right when I get to the point where I'm moving at a slow enough, I'm slowing down my skid. I get to the point where I'm almost stopped. Right before I'm almost stopped sliding, I jump up on my feet. I give him 2 thumbs up, and I was in full denial. Like, I jumped up and gave him 2 thumbs up because I was thinking, like, I'm just going to pick up my bike and we're going to keep going. We're going to,
Oh, Jesus.
like, and then I was like, I should sit down. Like, bike's totaled. Like, I'm a mess. But it was like, it's just funny how, like, your brain, it's like embarrassment or adrenaline or whatever, where it's just like, no, I'm fine. Like, didn't happen. We're good. Keep going.
Were there not a lot of cars on the highway? Because I'd be worried about, like, what's coming up behind me as well.
No, it was like middle of Montana. We only did like back roads, like we never did interstates or anything. Not that there really are many in Montana, but it took like a minute for a guy to roll up on the scene, and he was a local, and he's like, I've hit 14 deer in the last 17 years on this stretch of highways. I was like, oh, okay.
In a car, I assume.
In a car.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So like, it was golden hour, you know, it was like everything perfect for that to happen. Like in Montana, like the deer are out during sunset. Like we shouldn't have been riding our bike at that time in Montana. We just were trying to get to the coast, and then, so he rolled up and, you know, like eventually like got a hold of the police, and ambulance came, they checked me out, and they're like, I think you're good. And I was like, all right. They're like, if you want to go to the hospital, we could check you out further. I was like, no, I'll go if I find out I need to. Like, I'm good. I signed the paper that said like refuse care, and like walked away. It was
So a sore thumb and some road rash, and that was it?
Sore ankle. And then 2 weeks later, so our plan was to go from New York on our motorcycles from New York to Seattle down the coast, and then actually ended up, we were planning on going to Moab, doing the White Rim, which is like a 100-mile gravel route, which is like our bread and butter tour for the company I work for. We do guided tours on the White Rim. So it's kind of like full circle. That's what we were planning on doing. We had never been to Moab before. We just heard like this is a cool adventure for off-road motorcycle. And we're like, well, sweet. Let's end the trip there, go to Denver where my brother lives, and then sell the bikes, and then fly to Asia. And then, so once I hit the deer, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take the insurance check and just go to Asia. Like, you finish your trip and I'll meet you out there. So I went out to Vietnam for 3 weeks. I just like laid around and read books, and then once he flew in, we bought little 150cc motorcycles and then got back at it. It was like,
were you afraid to get back on a bike after that?
Yes. But I think those bikes are so small, it doesn't feel like a motorcycle. Like when my buddy took me to the airport on his motorcycle, I was absolutely terrified. Like, like it was like 2 days later. Obviously, I was like super spooked. But being on like the tiny little bike, it just felt like more of a bicycle than it did a motorcycle. I have not been on a big bike since, and like I'm like thinking about it, but I'm like not really. Like I'd rather be on a dirt bike or something. Like I don't really care to be on the highway anymore. I don't know.
And you know, psychologically, the more time there is after an incident like that without you actually doing it, the more your brain can like compound the fear. That's why the saying is like get back on the horse. Like you can rinse whatever sort of fear, phobia that builds from it. And like the longer you sit with it, for some people it can be like really difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Weird story at CrossFit one time. We were doing box jumps and like I fucked up one of the jumps and like landed on my shin on the box, and like the coach came over and immediately was like, you have to jump back on the box right now, otherwise you're gonna, it's, some people get afraid of doing that moving forward. You're
like before it sticks in your brain, like
yeah, exactly,
just do it again and then you erase it.
Getting back on the horse.
Zach Davis afraid of boxes.
So that directions to take that.
There's no boxes in this room. I see that.
Chance and I are children.
We all are. We like to mountain bike and
do
hike and
stuff.
like do stupid shit.
Have you ever processed what the odds were of not only just walking away unscathed but surviving that?
I really think it's like a matter of like 1 millisecond. Because if I would have hit the deer, I would have flown into the air. But the deer, like my handlebars were snapped, and on the fork, the right fork, you can see where the deer hit because there's a bunch of blood and hair and shit. And it was like, I think it was just like a matter of like me hitting it or hitting me. So I'm like, I don't know. It's weird to walk away. Like, I don't think I really processed it until I got to Vietnam, because it was like, okay, well, you know, the whole thing happens and it's like, okay, well, we got to get on the phone with insurance and I got to book my flights, and then like we got to figure out what to do. And then like once I actually landed in Hanoi and got like a hotel room for myself, I was like, just like, I don't know, like something like emotionally came over me. And I was like, I'm alive. Like, holy shit. Like it took that long for me to like process it. And I don't know.
That's crazy.
I can't get over that you just got up and were fine.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, you're definitely supposed to die in that instance.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the whole ride until that point, like you run into motorcyclists, and I never really like talked to people on motorcycles before, like, and you know they're not. But when you're on a motorcycle, they're willing to share their story, and like everyone wants to tell you their accident, and it's like, and they always say like it's not if, it's when. So like the whole time we're like, shit, like, do we want to keep going? Like we were having a blast, but we kind of knew like in the back of our minds, like statistically one of us is gonna go down. So we're like riding pretty carefully, like I don't know, cautiously, but like it was like, I don't know, there's nothing I could have done in that situation to like get out of that. So that's why I'm like, it's crazy to me that people don't wear helmets on motorcycles, because I'm like, there's nothing, I don't care how good you are, like in that moment that deer flew out of the bushes, and like I couldn't have braked or accelerated or steered any which way to get out of that situation. Like, crazy.
Yeah, being on a bike without a helmet is a little bit of a death wish, I think. But
looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool. Do you recall what was going through your head when that happened?
Yeah. Everything slowed down. I just, like, as I was falling, I remember telling myself, oh, here we go. Like, you've done this before. Like, you know how to fall. I used to skateboard a lot, and I think that taught me how to fall, like, to not put out your arms or limbs or, like, try to catch yourself. You just, like, kind of, like, be drunk. And, I mean, I wasn't drunk, but, like, that's why drunk people are safer in accidents, because they're limp and they're loose. And, like, it's like, okay, just be loose. And, like, so, yeah, I remember, like, that half a second that I went from deer to pavement was like, it was like 5 seconds in my mind. It was like, here we go, okay. Like it wasn't like fear. It was just like, this is happening. Like, you know what to do. You know, it was like interesting. Just be like, I was like, all right, just go with it, roll with it, don't fight it.
Yeah.
Quick aside, do you smell smoke?
It smells like something's burning for sure.
Should we be concerned?
I feel like this has happened before.
Okay. Continue.
We're surrounded by restaurants. I'm going to assume Woody's is the culprit
it's like
here.
birthday candles smelling smoke.
Yeah.
I smell burger.
Okay. Everybody gets their own
I did
scent.
my due diligence. I said something.
Yeah. You are cleared.
Yes.
If we see it, we'll reevaluate.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you mentioned the idea to hike the PCT happened while you were in Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
and you got all of your gear while you were out there?
Yeah, so my buddy Kenny, Big Gulps, his brother was living in San Diego, still is, Khalid. So we had a place to ship all our gear. So
Okay.
yeah, so that 3 weeks where I was alone in Vietnam and I was sitting on my phone and chilling and just recovering, I that's when I dug into the PCT. Had heard about it maybe a month prior, I guess a few weeks, because we went from like Glacier, and then a few days later I hit the deer and went to Vietnam. So the idea was in my head, and then I had enough time to like sit around and recover from this injury, and just got on my phone and just like, I don't know, like just did my research and realized like, oh yeah, like there's people, because in my mind when you first hear about it, you're like, oh, you have to be a crazy athlete to be able to do something like that, and then once you actually dig deep, you're like, oh, people do it without much experience. And so we were like, well, we have this time to train. Like, I know necessarily we don't have to, but like if we do train, it's gonna increase our joy versus suffer, and then it's just like our chances of getting off because of an injury are lower. So, and we just enjoyed it anyway. So like once he flew out to Vietnam, met up with me, we went on one hike, and halfway through the hike, I was like, hey, Kenny, I got an idea for you here. And he was just sold. He was like, like immediately he was like, yeah, let's do it.
Damn.
Like, let's go back to the hotel. Let's look at what we have in the bank account and figure out what we can budget for 5 months. And turns out you can pretty much spend the same amount in a day in Vietnam with hotels, all 3 meals cooked for you, a few beers a night, gas for your motorcycle. That's the same price as hiking, through hiking. Like, it's like 20 to 35 a day, like depending on how frugal you want to be. I'm like, oh shit, like, so it was interesting.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, well, and then we like budgeted, and we were like right on the money. We were like a little bit in debt when we finished the PCT, and we're like, success. Like, it just graduated. I don't know. So.
You shipped all your gear to San Diego. How long did you have for like the point where you're trying on your gear to actually hitting the trail?
Oh, probably like 2 days. Yeah. I think maybe 3 days.
Yeah.
We flew in, and we got our permits. Like we got really lucky with our permit lottery when we did it in Vietnam, and got our date we wanted, April 21st. Flew in, I think, like the 18th, and just like we were a little jet lagged, and we're just like, all right, let's do it. Let's try on our gear. It got my, I don't know. It is all good.
How'd the gear go for you?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had, like, we weren't working in Vietnam, so like we would just hike all day, go home, cook some food, like sit on our phones, like research gear, like we'd share what we were looking up, just like we had time to actually like focus and read blogs and like surveys and stuff, and what's the like, so we kind of just went with like the most popular gear.
Yeah.
I had a big Agnes tent and hyperlight bag, and just like I did ultras, and now I'm on the Hoka train, so we kind of just like, well, this works for most people, like we'll start out with it. And then we were a little heavy. Like, I wasn't crazy heavy when we started, but like definitely in the Sierra at some point I was like, okay, I get the ultralight thing. Like hiking over Kearsarge Pass down to Independence, like knowing I'm gonna have to hike back up this thing, I was like, okay, there's some stuff in my pack I can get rid of. And I dumped it, like probably 4 pounds of stuff at the Bishop Gear Trader, I think is what it was. And it was like, since then I was like, all right, okay, I'm ultralight mentality, like it's just better.
Yeah.
What'd you dump?
Solar panel, rain pants, what else? I think an extra battery pack. I don't know, some heavy stuff that I wasn't really using. Probably extra underwear, extra socks. It's like clothes, I think, is just like the biggest thing when people are thinking, how do I go ultralight? It's like clothes is where to start.
Yeah.
You don't need all that stuff.
Yeah.
1 pair of underwear is good. 2 pairs of socks, recommend.
Yeah. So you mentioned hiking through the Sierra. 2019 was a high snow year without much backpacking experience. What was that like?
Smooth. It's good. The kind of tramley that we formed on the way to Sierra, we're like going back and forth. Do we flip? All the fear mongering. But my friend R2, who I was hiking with, she grew up in Banff, had a ton of mountaineering experience, no travel. And she was just like super confident. She's like, I know you guys don't have a lot of experience, but like, I have confidence in you guys. You guys are strong. You're smart.
Tall.
Fall, we'll go self-arrest. We'll practice. And then I can get you through this. And we just like trusted her. And yeah, it was smooth. Like big snow year. Like we saw like 200 miles of snow. Like I probably put 200 miles into my crampons. I had full-blown crampons at the time. And Alpine starts. We did Whitney. It was incredible. It was like, I don't know, so hard, but the highlight of everything, like the highlight of all the thru hiking I've ever done was that, and that year, that Sierra experience. And yeah, like no issues, super smooth. We kind of went in with a group that was too big. I think it was like, I want to say there was like 11 of us, and we kind of realized like this is a little too big. We're traveling slow. Like every time someone stops, everyone has to stop. So we kind of split off into like 5 and 6. Figured out that worked best, and yeah, everyone made it through. And then we were kind of killing time going up to the Sierra. Like we started April 21st, and then we're like, well, we might as well kill time and like let the snow melt, and then we'll catch up on the other side. So like in the beginning, we we're taking like zeros all left and right. Any excuse we could have a zero, we would take one. Like we got to Kernville. A friend of ours had a mutual friend who was training new raft guides at the time. And they're like, well, we need paddlers so we can train these guides. So, like, if you guys want to go.
I think we ended up doing the same thing because I did that too.
Yeah. They're like.
Because Lake Isabella, they're like, it's all drugs. Go to Kernville.
Yeah.
And you go to Kernville, and the whitewater people are like, we need 2 more people to paddle this boat.
Yeah. They're like recruiting people.
Yeah.
Great business plan.
Yeah.
So we went one day. They're like, rent your dry suit. You can go for free. So we went one day. They're like, you want to go again tomorrow? We're like, yeah. The second day, you want to go again tomorrow? Sure. So we did 3 days in a row of whitewater, and we're like, all right, let's make our way up to Kennedy Meadows. And then we got there and, took a zero in Kennedy Meadows, got all gear and food in order. We were actually, all of us like 8 of us were super low on food in the Sierra. We realized, like, leaving Kennedy Meadows, like, day like 3 or 4. So legendary move, MVP, our buddy Diamond was meeting up with a friend. I forget which pass he went up. So he kind of like, instead of zeroing in Kennedy Meadows, he took off so he could hike down a pass, meet up with a friend, and then he was going to hike up to meet us. And we in-reached him like, hey, we're all low on food. Is there any chance you can bring us 8 jars of peanut butter? And that dude hauled up 8 jars of peanut butter up the pass and like saved our asses. We show up, we turn a corner, we see his tent set up, and we roll up, and he's like chilling, like paint me like one of your French girls with
covered in peanut butter.
Would have been better.
Grab a spoon.
He's like, how desperate are you? But he had them all like stacked up in a tower, and it was just like, I have a picture of him. It was like, it was amazing.
It's the funniest drug deal of all time, hauling up 8 jars of Jiffy.
When you
Incredible.
When you were in the Sierra and you had to split into smaller groups, I'm imagining there's probably certain levels of fear at this point because you're not at the beginning still. You've now seen some shit. Is it an easy, natural 5 and 6, or is it like drafting? I want the mountaineer. I want the really tall dude. Like, how are you?
It was pretty easy, pretty natural.
Yeah, just like
exactly.
natural.
It was just like
groupings.
Yeah, everyone kind of like clustered, and we're like, okay, like yeah, let's just do it. And we kind of leapfrogged each other for the first few days, and then on like once we got through the Sierra, like we're like, oh shit, we gotta get to Canada now. We're behind. Our pace is behind. So it took us the same amount of time to do the last, or it took us 2 months to do the last half and 3 months to do the first half. So it was like, all right, let's go. So R2 and I ended up just like pretty much taking off, her and I, for the rest of the trail. And we just like, I don't think we didn't zero from Mammoth to Bend, and we got to Bend. We're like, all right, it's been 1,000 miles. Like, we can take a zero now. We're looking good. So
Yeah.
we kind of, like, at that point, we got out of the Sierra. Like, Kenny and I, we had been traveling together for like a year. Over the course of the year, we realized like we're gonna butt heads. So like periodically we would butt heads and then take a break from each other. So like, so that initially happened. Like when I hit the deer, we were like, all right, starting to get tired of each other, and it happened naturally that We had 3 weeks apart. He got back to Vietnam. We're all best friends. We love each other again. And then like
He ordered the deer to come
Yeah.
get your bikes, get some distance.
ooh, I like that. I'll have to talk to him about that. who he paid.
Yeah. An app. Oh dear.
It was a bird. It was a government bird, deer. I was working with the birds.
So there's obviously a lot more adventure stuff that I want to get into, but before we move on from the first PCT hike, you mentioned that Mount Whitney was the highlight of all of your backpacking. I'm curious to know, were you happy or sad to reach the end of the snow?
Like in Northern Sierra?
Yeah.
Like, stoked for
Yeah.
dry trail. Like we were tired. We were tired at
Yeah.
that point. Like going 1.5 miles an hour for so long, you're like, all right. Once you hit that, I don't know, dry trail, you're just like, oh my God, it's just a dream. It's like when you've been driving a washboard road for hours and hours and you hit pavement, you're just like, oh my God, I can hear my thoughts. It's like, it was that feeling.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you were going to hike the Sierra again and you could pick snow or no snow.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
I would love to do it in the snow again. Because
Yeah.
last year I had no snow. I did it in September. There was still snow from the previous winter, considering it was the highest snow year of all time. So that's why I ended up putting it off as the last mountain range I wanted to do last year, because I'm like, I gotta let that shit melt. And then it was a completely black and white different experience. Like, there's switchbacks and they're beautiful. Like, to appreciate the engineering that went into that trail, like, phenomenal. And like doing 2 passes a day, like it was just like it was a completely different experience. But I am nostalgic for the snow travel. Like I'm talking to Kenny and another buddy about maybe doing the GMT next year, so I guess we'll like see how the snow falls. But I miss it. It's my favorite mountain range, like by far.
So what's the timestamp on the next journey, which was, I guess before I move on, is there anything from the PCT that we should hit on before we jump to the next chapter?
No, no, not that's coming to my brain right now. But maybe if it pops up.
So you biked across America. Was that the following year?
That was the following year.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2020. So I finished the PCT, and then I was like, okay, CDT next year. And then COVID hit, and I was in New York. Finish the PCT. I'm going to go to New York, bartend, save up money, go to the CDT next year. Like, was the plan. And then COVID hit, and then the city wasn't like I love New York City, and I love the backcountry. And then once COVID hit, and the city was like, it was an interesting time. And then like, there's no city things to do anymore. There's no like dining and like going out and partying and like, I don't know, going to concerts, like all the things I love to do, whatever. Once COVID hit, I was like, well, I can't thru-hike, but I think I could ride my bike across the country solo. I was like, this is like pre-vaccination. I was like, I think I can just like stay to myself, wear a mask, get into the grocery store, get what I need, get out, and like just keep moving, and like don't talk to people, like don't go to coffee shops, bars, like going through the South where COVID didn't exist. Like, okay, so I didn't get COVID. Like, it was perfectly safe. It was like, I know, a little risky, but basically it just evolved to, I'm in New York City now. I can't thru-hike. I don't want to be in New York City now. I want to move out west, because that was my plan, was like maybe do the 3 long trails and then go back west and like settle down a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, maybe now's the time to just find myself out west. And I didn't exactly know where. I kind of loved like Bend, Ashland, San Diego, like maybe Eastern Sierra. And I was like, well, I'd love to ride my bike across the country. It's something I've always wanted to do, and like that'll give me the headspace and time to think about where I want to move. So I basically just like sold all my shit, quit my job. I mean, like people are like, oh, so you rode west? And I'm like, no, because you're supposed to ride east because the winds go east. So I'm like, I flew to San Diego, rode my bike east to Florida, and then I was like, well, that'll give me time to think about where I want to go. And I kind of met somebody, I didn't really like decide on any place I wanted to move, but I met somebody outside of Austin who was also riding his bike across the country. And I had only met like 6 other people who were doing it during COVID. And he was a mountain bike guide for this company in Moab. And once I finished, he texted me like, hey, we need guides for next year. Are you interested? And I was like, I've never mountain biked before, but I'm definitely interested. And he's like, well, I'll put you in contact with the GM. And he calls me. He's like, go rent a mountain bike, see if you like it. I want to hire you, but I can't hire you until you've like tried it. So I did. I just bought one. I was like, I know I'm gonna like it. So I bought one and went on a ride, called him back, like, let's give this a shot. So it was like, I don't know, it's just like, I had no loose ends. I quit my job, sold all my stuff. I was like ready to move wherever. I had what was on my bicycle and one suitcase worth of stuff that I owned at that point. So like, I was just like ready for the next thing. So it's like, of course I'm going to say yes to this offer, like try it out. It sucks. I'll leave and I'm in the same position. So like, and then that ended up turning into 2 full seasons of guiding. And now I'm back with the company this year. And yeah, it's like, just fell into my lap. I don't know. It's like life.
When you were first trying the mountain biking, was there any part of you that was a little spooked out after the deer thing? Because for me, mountain biking is very bumpy and you can go very fast.
Yeah.
I like neither of those things.
Yeah, I was timid at first. But the thing I didn't realize and why I was thinking I would never get into mountain biking because all the shit you see on Instagram is the gnarliest mountain biking you've ever seen. Like, that's all you see. You're not going to see a video of somebody going on this like super smooth, like slow trail because it's not going to go on your it's not going to end up on your page. So once I started mountain biking, I realized like, oh, there's green trails, there's blue trails, there's beginner trails, like, and then that just opened my, eyes to like something that I could potentially pursue because I can start slow and slowly push myself and push the wrist, push the my skills, and Mount Moab is the mountain biking town, so like I was riding with people who were very good and just following them and seeing how they do things and just being like, oh, I could try that, and like having them coach me and walk me through it, and then just like, and then some of our mountain bike tours are for beginners and or kid friendly. So I was just kind of like put on those tours. Like I was talking to my boss during the interview process. I was like, so how's this going to work? I've never mountain biked. He's like, you don't have to be the fastest person on the tour. You just have to be faster than the slowest person on the tour. So that's why I tell people, like, I don't know, when I'm talking about people who are trying to hire, or if I'm trying to hire somebody and like who might be like a really good cook and like have work ethic and like, or maybe through hiked, and I'm like, you have like most of the skills you need for this job because you have to wear a lot of hats. Like mountain biking, I could teach you. Like, are you personable? Like, these are the things that maybe are harder to teach than like, because like most of the time you're riding in the back with the slowest person or you're riding in the front, but like you can usually choose. And then, so it was just like a slow roll, and I've, knock on wood, like never had any crazy. I've never broken myself on a mountain bike. I'm sure it's not if, it's when. Same thing as motorcycles, but I think I was just like really good at like really just pushing the envelope. And something my buddy Merrick said was, you can't get better if you're hurt. So it's like you might think you can do that move, but if you're not confident, you're going to screw yourself, and then you're going to set yourself back 6 months, and you have to start over again. So I'm like, just I don't know. And I don't race. I don't have any desire to race. Like I do it because I love it, and like I don't know. I can go fast and get rowdy, but like I just love being on the trail out, with my buds.
How would you assess the risk profiles of mountain biking versus motorcycling? And I know obviously the style of how you do either dictates that, but just generally speaking.
Well, mountain biking, it's on you. Like motorcycles, road riding, you're surrounded by other elements that you have no control over. Cars. Like, when I finished that ride across the country, the last 2 weeks I was like, I think I hate road biking. Like, I don't want to ride with cars anymore. Like, so I was kind of like at this point where I'm like, this is something I've loved forever, but like I don't really have a desire to do it much anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get into gravel biking. And then it eventually got into mountain biking. But I'm like, same with motorcycles versus mountain bike. It's like mountain biking and motorcycles, like you can take risks, but mountain biking, like, I don't know, there's not too many other elements like that are out of your control. Like a bear can run out in front of you, a deer can still run out in front of you, but it's not like drunk drivers on the road. So I feel safer riding down something gnarly on a mountain bike than I do like riding my road bike to the grocery store, so, or motorcycle. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It was just like discovering that, like it was just perfect timing where I'm like, I don't really care to road bike anymore, but I love cycling. And then it's just like this whole new world got opened up to me, and I'm like, oh, this is my favorite thing to do in the world, and I want to kind of like shape my life around like through hiking and mountain biking as many different trails as possible all over the world. So I'm like kind of, I don't know, in this position where I can see that being possible.
How long did your cross-country ride take?
41 days.
Okay, fast.
Yeah.
How long is the route?
It's 3,000 miles.
Okay.
So I averaged 73 miles a day. I didn't take any days off. I was like, because it was COVID, I was like, there's nothing to do. Like, why take a day off? Like, so I kind of just head down and push myself, and yeah.
And is this on an established route?
It is. It's the Southern Tier route. There's the I forget the name of the whoever set it up, but there's a Southern Tier route, the Trans-America, and then the Northern Tier are like the biggest like cross-country routes. So I chose the southern one because I did it in November and December. It's the winter time, so I'm like, it's the warmest.
Yeah,
the safest bet. So
yeah.
It was cold, but like it was through California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, like through the south. So it was like pretty good temperatures actually.
Yeah.
Slept good.
Are you camping or are you looking for motels?
I'm camping. I probably stayed in 3 hotels along the way. I found out that once you hit Texas, there's no more public land until Florida. It was just like through California, just through Arizona, New Mexico, you just like ride and it's all public land. You just pull over, set up camp, and keep moving. And then once I hit Texas, and you're like, oh, it's just 98% of the state or whatever is private land. So I kind of just started sleeping behind churches for the whole rest of the way. And like that's kind of a big in the cycling, like adventure cycling community, road cycling community, is like just sleep behind churches. And luckily for me, the days were very short. So like the sun was going down at like 5:30, and then up at like 8 a.m. So I would roll in the dark, find the church on Google, like get behind it if it looked good. Maybe there might even be an outlet. And I would just sleep, get full night's sleep, and then get out before the sun came up. I wouldn't do it on Saturday night. So Saturday night, like I think a couple times once I slept behind a fire station instead, and then one Saturday night I got a hotel, but I had no problems with it. One church, I think in Louisiana, there was a shed out back, and I was like, "Oh, it's open. I'm just gonna peek inside." And it was where they stored all their artificial flowers for their service. So it was just a shed full with flowers. Like perfect floor space, and it was like out of the wind. It's like best night on the trip.
Do they if one of the church people see you in a tent, are they kind of like, oh, he's probably biking this trail, or do they not know enough about the trails nearby them where they're like, honey, we have a tent in the backyard?
They probably know.
Yeah.
It's a popular route. Like, it wasn't popular in 2020, but I'm sure they know. And I only got woken up once. I only got the knock once, and it was in Florida, and it was just like some guy just going to like behind this building to smoke pot, and he was just like, "Hey, what are you doing in there?" And I was like, "I'm riding across the country." He's like, "Okay, what's your name? Give me your ID." He was just like some guy who's like a little, I don't know, interesting. And
You gave him your ID?
yeah, I gave him my ID. I was just like, I don't know, like just being buddies with him. I was like just trying to like be friendly and be like, "Hey, like what's your name? Like, you from here? Like this area's beautiful, you know?" Like, and like he was cool. He like eventually he was like, "All right, you're pretty cool." And like we like I bullshitted with him like long enough for him to be like, "Okay, cool, have a good night, like sleep tight." And like I was like, I should move. I'm too tired, so I just like slept for a few more hours and then got up.
That's funny.
Yeah.
How does that experience compare to the PCT?
It was solo. So the PCT I did with the Tramley. I did it in the bubble. I started with my buddy. I ended up hiking with my buddy, the Tramley, and then R2 for the whole. So I was hiking with somebody. Like during the day, you know, through hiking, you don't really hike with people unless you're chatting for a little while. So like, but it was a very social experience. Riding my bike across the country was a kind of a challenge in two ways for myself, to see if I liked traveling solo, because I had only traveled with other people at that point. And then also I was teasing the idea of being vegan, and I was like, well, if I can ride my bike across the country completely vegan and I feel normal and I don't feel like crap, then maybe this is something that can work for me. And I felt great, and so I like ended up being vegan for like 3 years, and then ended up realizing I loved solo travel. Like that was a big difference between that and the PCT. It was like, yeah, I love traveling with people. It's 50-50. Like I don't, maybe I like traveling solo a little bit more now after having done it last year, but like I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did, and that was kind of cool. So I don't think I would have pursued a calendar year Triple Crown if I didn't have that 41-day ride where I'm like, no, I loved traveling solo. You know, I don't think I would have been able to comprehend 9.5 months solo without having that. And I was still worried about being solo for that long, but it never really turned into a problem for me. Like, yeah.
I had a question and I lost it. Oh, you mentioned that you were vegan for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you end up getting off of it?
Because the calendar year Triple Crown, I didn't want to limit my food options more than hiking food already is. So I did it vegetarian. I mean, I realized like in 2019, I pretty much did it vegetarian anyway, even though I ate meat. Like I'd get burgers in town, but like I was on a budget. Like I didn't buy jerky. Like nobody really eats jerky like you think they do because it's so expensive, you know? So I'm like, that deconstructed how I viewed a meal. Like up until that point, it's like a meal is meat and sides. And then when you're through hiking, you're like, oh, I'm just snacking all day. And like, I'm like, oh yeah, I really didn't eat that much meat except in town. So I was vegan up until I jumped on the calendar year Triple Crown, and I just went vegetarian just because I was like, I know I'm going to hate food already. I don't need to like
limit the options beyond.
Like cut all my, and I didn't want to ship myself boxes too. That's the other option, ship yourself boxes. And I just didn't want to deal with that. So I'm still vegetarian. I think I'm going to go vegan again shortly in the next few months. But like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel good. And
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the calendar year Triple.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
What was the inspiration for this? Obviously, you'd done the PCT, so
Yeah.
you'd kick the tires. You know that you could backpack, but yeah, why go in such a big manner?
I guess I'm just making the correlation right now that it's similar to hiking the PCT. I heard about it in Glacier National Park, and then the idea was in my brain, and it grew, and then ended up hiking the PCT. When I was on the PCT in 2019, going through the JMT, I met legend Jeff Garmeyer, who had done the calendar year Triple Crown a few years prior. He was just doing the JMT section, getting ready for his JMT FKT attempt. And so, like, I forget who he was hiking with, but they, like, passed our group, and, like, somebody in my group knew about him. I'm like, holy shit, that's legend. Like, he did this thing. I'm like, what is that thing? Like, that's possible. It's just, like, mind blown. Like, I don't know. No way. Impossible. Fake news. So then the idea grew. Like the whole time I was hiking up north, I didn't realize I was talking about it as much as I did, because in hindsight, because when I finished the calendar year Triple Crown a year ago, I finished at the southern terminus of the PCT. R2, who I hiked with in 2019, she was actually traveling through because she did a race in Moab and was heading back up to Canada. Swung by and ended up being there with two other friends that I hiked with in 2019 to like see me finish, and it was awesome, like great reunion. But she was like, "You did it," and I was like, "Yeah, like I did it." And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You talked about it so much when we were hiking together in 2019." I was like, "Did I?" She's like, "Yeah." Like, she's like, "I knew you were gonna do it. Like you." She's like, "You decided in 2019 you were gonna do it." And in my like thinking back, I don't remember deciding or having that much confidence that I was actually going to do it one day. I was just like obsessed with like the fact that some human can do it. And then when I hit the terminus in 2019, I was like, okay, like I could use a week off, but I'm not ready to be done hiking. I was like, I just felt like, okay, that was an awesome challenge, and I'm stoked to get on the CDT next year, but like I could hike more than 5 months, and like I'm not sure if I can hike for 9.5 months, but like might as well see if I can. And so yeah, it's just same thing, just like developed, like met legend, and then once I so then a few years went by. I was guiding in Moab, and then I kind of just got to the point where I was like, oh shit, I forgot that I love thru hiking, and it's been a few years since I've thru hiked. So I was like just starting to think about, okay, what am I going to do? Like, is it time to do the CDT? And then it kind of came back in my mind, like, you got the money, you're healthy, like you're single, my job would fully support me because I have an adventurous job. Like I knew I could tell them that this is what I want to do. And then they'd be like, okay, cool. Well, we hope you come back. So I actually gave them like a year notice, and my boss gave me a ton of work because he needed it and I needed the money. So like, it's just like win, win, win. And yeah, it's like, he helped me out. Merrick, thank you. Appreciate it. And then, yeah, went out there.
So what's your route? Are you starting January AT?
February 3rd,
Okay.
which is my birthday, which is also, what's his name? Steve? No. Who's the guy that did the Calendar Triple? Kansas Express. Also his birthday. He did it 2 years prior. And he started on his birthday too. So funny link there. Just because Legend started on, I read his book. I read Legend's book, Free Outside, about his Calendar Year Triple Crown. And then like, he's too humble. He made it look too easy. And he did it so fast. I think if he were more realistic in his writing, I probably wouldn't have attempted it. But I don't know, it's just like super smooth. So he started on February 5th. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just start on my birthday 2 days prior. And then I started on the AT. And as everybody does, they set out to try to do the trails without breaking them up. And then most of us do. When I hit Vermont, I hit a ton of snow. I was going 1 mile an hour. And I was thinking back to Quadzilla on this podcast, being like, he pushed through that shit and he went 1 mile an hour for like 400 miles, and I was like, I do not want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
So like, so much respect for him and Legend and everyone who pushed through. But
How
I was
does
like,
that snow hiking compare to like the Sierra?
it's not like ice sacks and crampons. It was kind of soft, and like it was just slow. It was just post holing. Like it was just wet feet and post holing and freezing mornings. But it wasn't. I feel like it just wasn't, the risk factor wasn't there as much as the High Sierra. So it was kind of like, I'm thinking like, people are starting the trail in New Mexico in the desert. That sounds so nice. So I kind of just like, okay, I'm going to go to New Mexico. And then jumped off in Vermont, started the trail in New Mexico, ended up realizing like, oh shit, well, Colorado had a big snow year last year. So like I was, so in northern New Mexico, I hit a ton of snow. And then was like, okay, well, I don't want to be the first person through the San Juans. And I don't want to skip the San Juans. Like, I know you can hike the Great Divide route around it. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. But then it's just like, I'm too early on the CDT, like at the pace I'm going. So I decided to go back to the AT, went from Vermont to Katahdin, finished Katahdin 2 days, like a day after it opened, Baxter opened. So like, that was also it too, like going up the AT. I'm like, oh, Baxter's not going to be open. Like, do it. Like, I don't. So it was just like, all right, well, I'm giving up on trying to do these all the way through, and I'm just going to like jump around. I didn't budget to fly around the country like I did, but here we are. Like, this is, and then the Sierra also had a record snow year. So like, my original plan was AT, PCT, CDT, and then I already had to throw that out the window, like, because of the PCT snow year. And like, funny enough, like the day before I was, or like, gonna fly to Georgia to start the trail, I was sitting in a bar in New York with my buddy Kenny, and I was like just like surrounded by all my friends, and I was just like, you know what, like the snow year is shit. I'm just gonna do this next year. Like, I'm just gonna live in New York. I'm like, I'm already here. Like, I'm just gonna like live here for a year, and then try it again next year when hopefully it's a better snow year. And he just looks me in the face. He's like, dude, your bag is packed. Like, just get the fuck to Georgia and try it. And so I'm so grateful that he like pushed me into, I don't know, because I was like so ready to be like, screw this, because I don't know, I was like, I know it's going to be challenging, but all right, whatever, let's do it.
Yeah. So when you get back to Vermont, is the snow melted at that point?
It was, but the White Mountains were nasty. They were just really cold. Like, I was.
What time of the year is this?
This is May.
Okay.
So like early May. And I was dumb. I just left the desert, and like, I abandoned all my like mid layers and like my beanie and my gloves, and I was going up into the presidential range, like thinking like, oh, like I'm just gonna take my desert gear, and like luckily I like thought, okay, I'm gonna go get like a beanie and some leggings because I had no pants, and I went to a thrift store and in Lincoln, and the lady working there had hiked the AT before, and she was like, you need clothes, you're gonna die. So she's like, get whatever you need, and then she like cashed me out. She's like $8, and I was like, oh, you're so sweet. She
Wow.
Wow.
saved my ass.
Yeah, that's an
really
angel right there.
nice.
And I was thinking about like also Quadzilla, like when he was on the podcast, he was talking about like going down Musalaki and like holding on to trees and going down the ice, and I'm like, what? I can't even comprehend like what that looks like. And I still had that when I went back to the whites, even after killing a month, and like going down Musalaki being like, this is what he was talking about. This is so sketchy. You hold onto a tree, you take a few steps, you grab another tree, you're like just trying not to slide down the ice chute that is the trail.
Yeah,
It's like
because there's no one else on trail. If you eat shit,
No.
that's bad news bears.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a satellite communicator on you?
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a Garmin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to when you decided to leave Vermont the first time. Would you describe that as type 2 or type 3 fun?
Type 2. I think I made a decision if it was going to be type 3 or type 2. When I hit the whites and realized how serious it is, I had never been to the whites before. I had heard they're difficult, but then like on Musalaki, like that first climb up, you're like, oh, it's like 8,000 feet of elevation gain over 20 miles. Like when I did the far out, like looking at your map, and I'm like, and then I just like would zoom it up to each mountain range and being like, this is insane. And I was like, you can hold your pace and suffer, or you can like slow down and really appreciate these mountains. Because I did love it. I thought they were absolutely gorgeous, and like I was like, just slow it down and really enjoy it and take it in, and like don't hurt yourself here, and also like don't destroy your knees before you go to the CDT, where like the trail is just going to get easier and you're gonna pick up that pace. Because like my AT pace is just like obviously behind what I projected for all 3 trails, but then I quickly learned that the AT is like insane compared to the other 2 trails. Like I'm like, I loved it, but like I didn't know that it had almost twice as much elevation gain as the PCT. So I'm like, okay, so your pace is going to be slower, just like enjoy the White Mountains, type 2, not type 3, and then get to the CDT, and it's just trail's gonna open up.
Yeah.
And so I'm very glad I did, because otherwise I would have hated the White Mountains, and like I knew I would have walked away from them just being like, they beat me up, rather than like, okay, I'm just gonna go down to like 17, 18, 19 mile days versus the 25s that I had projected I was gonna do. Like, there's no point.
That was one thing I noticed going from PCT first to AT second, was just being like, there's so many moments in New England where it's just like, what the fuck is this? And then you go and you hike a little further, and then you see another part of the climb, and you're just like, no, really, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it's just such a different style of trail.
Yeah.
It really is. So to add winter elements to that is wild.
Yeah. It's comical. Like, if you're not laughing at it while it's happening, it's gonna suck. You know what I mean? Like, you have to just be like, this is stupid. These like these poles I have to hold on to get up, and like, I don't know, it's just funny. Like, you just have to laugh. I don't know, and appreciate it.
It looks like you have a friend. Did you have something? You made your little noise.
I did make my noise. That's called breathing.
But I was right, wasn't I?
That was my inhale breath. My inhale question breath. You're right. My question is, are you stressed out going through the whites beyond just like the normal stress of hiking in those conditions, in terms of keeping a pace given what all the miles that lie ahead of you?
Yeah, I really just had to sit myself down and acknowledge the stress, because I was disappointed in myself that I couldn't hold that pace. And I literally just like took a moment. I was just like, you're gonna lose 1 more day, 2 more days if you slow down to a healthy pace. And over the year, like that 1 or 2 days, like, is not huge. Like, you can make that up in Oregon. You can make that up in, like, I don't know, like the Wyoming basin, so I'm just, once I put it into perspective, and like, cause I was stressing about it, but then I was just like, just hike, just focus on today, focus on this next resupply. And like, I don't know, that's just kind of what I did for the rest of the year.
And out of curiosity, what is a relaxing pace in the whites in May through snow?
I think it was 17, 18 miles an hour average. It was slow.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's still, those are like typical summer miles for most hikers. So
Yeah.
they're still moving.
And it's still more elevation gain than like a 30-mile day on the PCT, you
Right.
know? So it's like, once I think I was basing my days on elevation gain rather than mileage at that point. I was like 7,000 feet max. Like, it's not mileage anymore.
Yeah.
It's elevation gain. Like, that's the game.
That's what I had done too.
Yeah.
I need 5,000 is where I know that's a
Right.
good place to cut it.
Right. Otherwise, and like, I kind of like learned early on, like I would try to push my pace and be like, okay, let's stay up another hour and a half tonight and hike. And then I would just sleep in another hour and a half. And then, you know, so I'm like, every time I try to push myself, I just ended up losing it, you know, because I slept through my alarm or would snooze my alarm for an hour, you know? So I kind of just like figured out what that exertion is versus mileage, you know? And then like when I realized in the whites, like that exertion of 25-mile days in Virginia equates to 18-mile days in the whites. So like, let's just not fight it and,
Yeah.
you know, slow down and not stress it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I inhaled
Oh,
and then
yes.
interrupted you.
I was going to say, from the looks of the show notes, it sounds like you might have a Franconia Ridge story.
Yeah. It was disgusting. The coldest I had ever been the whole year. But I was looking at the weather forecast and I was like, okay, it's going to be shitty going up to Franconia, but if I can get through it, I have a weather window to hit the presidential range in the sun. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, take a gamble and just go up this ridge. And thankfully that lady, I wish I knew the thrift store or her name, who gave me all that gear, because I used it and still froze my face off, like frozen mustache boogers, like the whole shebang. And just like the windiest thing I'd ever experienced, like windier than fall or spring in Moab. It's like, it's just windy. So just like full blown, like can't see anything up on Franconia Ridge, getting blasted. Like it's fully exposed. Like there's no rocks to duck behind. So you're like, this feels sketchy, but I either move forward or backwards. It's the same shit. So I might as well keep moving forward. And there's just like this bird that I spooked, and I like startled
Quail?
it. Blackbird. I don't know. Raven crow type.
Ooh, okay.
Spooky bird type.
Yeah.
I just spooked it, and it literally just like did a little like fluff. I don't think it even intended to fly out. It just like, but then once it got off its feet, the wind just scooped it out and sucked it. And and like, it went 15 feet away from me, and I couldn't see it anymore. Like that was the visibility. So I just started screaming. I was like, no, Wilson! Like,
I killed that bird.
And then the whole rest of the ridge, like from that moment, I was just screaming, like, this is crazy. Just like, like, get down. And I'm so glad, like, it was fine. I was frozen. It was cold, but slept warm. And then once I hit the presidential range, it was the most beautiful sunny day. I could focus on like traveling through those snowfields that I wasn't prepared for and didn't have the gear for. So like, and then right after I got through the presidential, another storm rolled in, and then a bunch of hikers behind me. Oh, not a bunch of. There's not too many people on the trail, but somebody that I had met who was behind me ended up getting stuck for like 3 days waiting the weather. So like, I'm really glad I pushed through that misery on Franconia to like hit the presidential, because if I wouldn't have gone up to the presidential if it was that weather. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, too many, way more variables. But I don't know. It was a blast. It was like, I don't know. It was funny. I think going up the presidential, or Lincoln, I think it's the first mountain of the presidential, I ran into a day hiker, and I hadn't seen a day hiker in like a long time on the whole AT. And I'm like, what are you doing up here? And they're like, oh, we're working on the grid. Like, do you guys know about the grid?
Yeah.
It blew my mind. And like, so then I kept seeing day hikers, and I was like, y'all are amazing. And they were like, I don't know. It was just cool to like have people to talk to. And like, for people that don't know the grid, it's hiking every single 4,000 foot mountain in New Hampshire 12 times. So you hike Mount
Every
Washington
month, right?
every month of the year. And
Yeah.
like most people work on it over the course of their life. So
Yeah.
they're checking off, okay, I did Washington in January and March, and I did Lafayette, and you know, so it's like, that's the grid. So like, I'm like, why am I seeing people up here in May? And I'm like, these people aren't going for like just a day hike. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're up to something. What is it? It's fascinating. Like,
Yeah, the
mad
peatbagging
respect.
culture is different out there. It's at a different level.
Yeah.
For sure.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Are you-
think Jackson might be the first if you're going Nobo.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm looking it up while we're talking. Jackson, Pierce, Eisenhower, Monroe, Washington. Where's Lincoln? Show me Lincoln.
I think Lincoln
Maybe it's like way back.
is Franconia.
Oh yeah, then probably is Lincoln. Oh, Lincoln the town.
Oh, Lincoln's a town. Oh.
Yeah, no, I know Lincoln the town. But
Or is
there's
it
a mount-
Lafayette?
I don't know. It all kind of blurs together at a certain point. You're like, which
I
one
know.
came first? Which one came second? But okay, sorry.
Once again, got distracted from my question. Are you sleeping in the huts in the whites?
Not in the whites. They were all closed.
Okay.
Or the high ones were closed. I slept in the dungeon in the Lake of the Clouds right before Mount Washington, so that was cool. It's just like they leave that open in case of emergencies.
Yeah.
There's like four inches of ice on the ground. I slept in one of the beds that's like built for somebody who's like 5'9" and I'm 6 foot.
Are you the only one in there?
Oh yeah, for sure. There was one hut I did a work first day. Some guy just like had me sweep the bunk and then I slept. But no, I pretty much avoided them. I would go in every single day and put $1 in the basket and get a cup of coffee. That was pretty nice. Just like have a bench to sit on. But
Yeah.
no, I didn't really mess with them too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does Southern Maine compare to the whites that time of the year?
It kind of blended together. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just as difficult, just as comical, the trail and nasty. But the weather was fine. I think after the presidential range, like wasn't, I don't remember it being too cold. It was rainy. I mean, I had some rainy days and then finally I found the bugs in Maine, so it was like, I kind of realized like, oh yeah, like, most things that people complain about the AT I didn't really experience because I started so early, like humid, crowds, bugs. So like I'm like green tunnel, like there's no leaves on the tree, so I didn't really have green tunnel. I could see out and like so I started with a tent because I'm like, well, I don't want to fight the crowds, so I'm just gonna like sleep in my tent. And then I realized I'm like, oh, I have every single shelter to myself, so I swapped out the tent for a bivvy in case I get stuck outside of a shelter. So then I just like quickly changed, and my game plan for the AT was to just stay on top of my mileage and like keep a Google Sheets going of like where all the shelters are that I want to hit, and I would plan out the next like 4 or 5 nights so I can always stay in a shelter. And I think like only 2 or 3 times I actually shared a shelter with somebody. It was nice because I'd get in late, like just throw my shit everywhere and don't have to worry about waking anybody up in the morning, getting up early. So like so grateful for the shelters. And I had a good amount of rain in the beginning, but it didn't feel like it was a burden because like you can just throw your head down, get to the next shelter, and then like you have a break from the rain. And knowing that you're not going to have to set up a tent in the rain and you're going to have a dry place to sleep. So it's like I just wasn't affected by the rain on the AT, like even though it was cold and freezing sometimes. It was just like just knowing that like you're going to have a dry place to sleep tonight. It's huge.
Yeah. Okay, so you finished that Katahdin. How was getting up Katahdin that time of the year?
It was crappy going up. Actually, it wasn't raining. It was just super windy and gray, no visibility. But it was cool because I finished as like the first week of all the Sobo hikers starting. So it was like cool to just see like, I don't know, see people again. And I don't know. So I like get up to the top. It was like miserable, no view. I was in shorts and I was just like, I don't know, stoked. I'm like about to finish the AT. Like, like if I don't finish the calendar year Triple Crown, like I'm about to finish the AT. It's great. So get up to the top. There's a guy who's about to start the AT. And he's the only one up there. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's take each other pictures. So it was like cool. Like he was stoked, asked me about the trail. And then we go down, how do you pronounce it? Able?
Yeah, Able.
We go down the Able Trail. And then shortly as we descend, the clouds lift up and then you just see a view. So it was just like, that was the best day of the whole AT, was just like seeing those clouds open up. I just finished and I'm like stoked to go to Glacier and hike south. Like, I don't know, it was just beautiful. It was just funny to be like no view the whole way up and then just like all of a sudden like, oh my God, Maine is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, because you mentioned your inspiration for doing this was you felt like you still had gas in the tank when you finished the PCT.
Yeah.
Obviously, you still felt that way when you finished the AT. I know your goal is different, so you better be there. But like,
Yeah.
were you still energized to keep going?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
I was stoked because now I'm going. So finished the AT. I had completed basically all of New Mexico. So my plan now was to go to Glacier and then hike south back to where I got off the CDT. And I loved Glacier. That's where the whole thing started for me, and it was beautiful, and like it was perfect time, and they had like a less than average snow year. So it made more sense to start in Glacier and go south than to go through Colorado because it was still high snow year. So yeah, I was like stoked, and I knew like I was gonna have a few days off too after finishing the AT. Like even those days carpooling out was like a break. It was great.
What month is this that you're getting to Glacier?
Early June.
Okay.
Yeah. So like first week of June, second week of June.
Did you take any time off other than just the transit of getting from Katahdin to Glacier?
No, it ended up being like 4 or 5 days off. It was weird. It was a weird chain of events. How I got to Glacier, it was like perfect timing. There's so many incidents, so many times last year where my timing was just absolutely perfect. Either I was like right ahead of a fire closure or like something like carpooling. So basically I had friends in Maine who were moving to Oregon and they were driving as I was finishing. I was like, okay, sweet. Can I get a ride with you west? And then I'll, try to find a way north. But I met 2 hikers on the CDT when I was going north. I started with them the same day. And I stayed in contact with them, Ragnarok and Scrambles. And I was talking to Scrambles, and she was like, oh, we're flipping up to Canada. My parents are going to pick us up and drive to Canada. On this date, we're going to be driving through Wyoming. And I was like, wait a second. That's the same exact day that my friends are going to be driving through Wyoming on their move west. So I finished. The day after I finished the AT, they were setting off on their drive. So I got to Millinocket, found a ride to Portland, jumped in the car with them, a few days to Wyoming, and then they dropped me off. My friends scooped me up, and then they actually had a ride to get to start at Waterton to go through Canada and start like on the Waterton part of the CDT. So it was great. So we were the first group going south through Waterton. Like we kicked steps into Ahern Drift, and it was just like we had the whole park to ourselves. We had infinite daylight. It's funny because you have to build your itinerary through Glacier. Like you have to plan your campsites, and it's like you don't know what you're getting yourselves into. We didn't know what kind of snow conditions were up there, so we planned pretty conservatively. We were doing like 25-mile days, and we realized like, oh, this isn't bad. So we'd get to camp at like 3 p.m. We'd have like 6 hours of daylight, and just like it was just like, so that was nice to just like relax and like really take in Glacier and just like hike at a nice pace and just like, oh, Glacier's just incredible. We had perfect weather, like beautiful. And then once we got through Glacier, like all the shit weather came through, and we ended up hitting that in the Bob Marshall, and that was a terrible time. But like having Glacier, like that was one of my favorite weeks of the year was through Glacier. So yeah, it's a weird timing. Just like, I don't know, provides. Trail provides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, southbound to where you got off in New Mexico, and then southbound on the PCT, is that the general route?
That was the plan.
Yeah.
So I ended up hiking with Scrambles and Ragnarok from Glacier, from Canada to... So they actually made it up to Wyoming when they flipped. So I dropped them off basically in... I can't think of the name. But basically I get the Colorado border, and then I finished Colorado. So it's great to have them to hike with. I had people to hike with. It was like in the middle of my year, like when I was like, I don't know, it's awesome. Like it wasn't completely solo, and I'm so grateful for that, to have those friends. Okay, and then, if I finish, now Scrambles, who I hiked with, she was driving back home to Chico. She had went to Minnesota after she finished for a few weeks, and then she was driving to Minnesota. So she's like, well, I can give you a ride to Harts Pass Harts Pass on my drive. So if you fly into Spokane. So I flew into Spokane. We're about to get in the car to go to Harts Pass, and we see that the trail's about to be closed due to a fire. So, all right. So now what are we going to do? Like at Stehekin area, and like they haven't even posted a detour yet. Like, and when detours going up in that area, they're going to add 2 or 3 days. Like it adds like 70 miles, 80 miles.
Yeah.
Like, those are huge detours. So I'm like, well, shit, maybe I'll just hike north. So she's driving down to California. So I'm like, can you take me to Ashland? I had friends in Ashland. So I had friends in Ashland, knowing that like if I start in Ashland, I'm going to have to get back there anyway if I flip from there. So she drove me to Ashland. I went from Ashland north to Canada. And then now it's September, so I have to get through the Sierra. So I was like, okay, well, I need to focus on the Cascades and the Sierra, like, because I'm starting the PCT in August. So I go from Ashland to Canada, and then I go from Kennedy Meadows through the Sierra back up to Ashland. So now I just have like the desert to do. So
Got it.
So that was my plan. So so that fire that was closing that made me redo my itinerary opened. Well, technically I hiked through it illegally, but like because I heard that like people were hiking, like 2 people had hiked through it before me, and they said it was all clear. So I got extra food in case I went up and then had to turn back and had to do the detour. But I went through. It was perfectly fine. And then like I talked to people at the hostel. They were like, oh yeah, we ran into firefighters during the closure. We thought they were going to give us shit, but they're like, oh yeah, come on through. So I'm like, and then it opened up like 2 days after me. So I just like got lucky. And then, yeah. So I just flipped around. I was hoping to do the whole PCT south because I had done it north in 2019 and I wanted to do it south. I ended up doing most of it north. So I did Ashland north, Kennedy Meadows north, and then I went from Kennedy Meadows south down to Mexico. So that's the only bit I did south.
Got it.
Yeah.
Obviously don't want to yada the CDT. It's a chunk of miles right there.
Yeah.
What stories stand out to you from that?
Ooh, the CDT glacier, obviously, was just phenomenal. The Bob Marshall Wilderness was terrible. I need to go back and redeem it. I feel like it's the only section of trail last year where like I just did not have a good time. I went through with scrambles and we didn't have enough food. We were both like food stressed. We had terrible weather the whole time, no views. Like when we got to the wall, we were just so over it at that point. Like we didn't even appreciate the wall, you know, like just miserable, cold, rainy the whole time. So that was rough. So I definitely want to go hike the Bob Marshall Wilderness again soon. It's on my list for the next few years. It's just like, because I know it's beautiful and I want to, and like there's down trees and 150 water crossings. Like it was just like everything compounded and it was just a terrible week. Not really a highlight. That's a low light, but Colorado was just epic. Like I had never hiked in Colorado before, and like the whole trail's above tree line, and like there's something about being above tree line, you just get energy. Like I don't know, like I don't know. It's just like you can just do more miles. Like your head it's just instantly rewarding, and so that's why I loved Colorado.
Yeah. So you're in Colorado in July?
Yeah, July, August, mid-August, late July, early August.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's monsoon season. Are you getting a lot of storms?
Yep.
Yeah.
I got the afternoon thunderstorms. There was one storm going into Frisco, Silverthorne, that was just disgusting. I was on a ridge looking at a lightning cloud that I need to just hike through. Like I'm like, there's no point in me getting lower. I mean, maybe it would have been safer, but like I'm like, all right. So I just like tried to bolt through it, and then I'm like surrounded by lightning, so I kind of just like get off the ridge a little bit, duck under, like, and then just sit there under my umbrella, and like I'm like, that was probably the worst 10 minutes of the whole year. And then like just lightning all around me. Like probably the closest one was like 100 yards that way, but like, I'm just like, they're just all around me, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is real.
So I know a lot of people that'll use an umbrella purely for sun. Like they'll still carry a rain jacket too, which is a little crazy. You used it. You didn't have a rain jacket?
I had a rain jacket too.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I had both.
Yeah.
I love the umbrella. It was great. I didn't even use it for sun that much because I got the Ultrasil one versus the silver one, and I saved like those 2 ounces, and that Ultrasil one just doesn't do shit for the sun.
Interesting.
So I would recommend if anyone's going to get an umbrella, get the one that is silver, and you can use it for both. Like I feel like in the sun it made it hotter, like it created a little sauna around me, so pretty much only used it for the rain, but especially for the CDT, like you're gonna get those afternoon storms. Like we got them in Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, like, and it really only rains for an hour or 20 minutes even. So like having to just throw that up and then put it away, it's like nothing ever happened. Like, it just never gets to you mentally or physically, I guess.
Yeah. Any other standout stories from CDT?
Yes.
Do you ever hit the doldrums? So, like, obviously in thru hiking, it's very common. On the AT, there's Virginia Blues. On the PCT, oftentimes it happens in, like, Northern California or Oregon for folks. What does that look like in the context of a calendar year triple?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it was just like a perfect, I think like hiking with people in the middle of it kind of like got rid of that. Because in the beginning on the AT, I was stoked. I was thru hiking again, like just like gung ho. The CDT CDT is beautiful. Like on top of it being beautiful, I was able to experience that with other people. And then once I got to the PCT, I'm like, oh shit, like I might have a chance at this thing. So now I'm like focused on the finish. So like I feel like the only doldrums I can really think of was the Ball Marshall. Like that was the only time I was just like, I don't know if I like this anymore. Like, all right, another story. So I'm going north. When I'm back in New Mexico, I'm going north, and I have already arranged a flight and a pickup. My buddy Merrick, who I keep bringing up, he was going to drive out from Moab, pick me up, and then take me to the airport when I got to Cumbres Pass. So I hike out of Ghost Ranch. I'm going north, and I wake up in the middle of the night just vomiting everywhere. And I didn't eat town food. I ate like the Philo's like prepackaged beans. I think I just ate too much. That also happened to me on my cross country ride. Now I'm remembering, where I think I just overloaded myself with food, and I woke up in the middle of the night just like vomiting everywhere. So I'm like, well, I have 4 days of snow travel. I don't like I have enough food. I could just like take this zero, sit at this campsite, like get better, and then hike for it. But I'm like, no, I'm not. Like I'm gonna jump in a plane and go to my apartment and my friend's apartment in New York and just like, I don't know, recover from whatever the hell just came over me. I don't know what it was, but so I like throw up everywhere 4 miles north of Ghost Ranch, give up on my plans, like book a new flight, and then I realized like, oh shit, when I was hiking back south to that point where I threw up, that was the most northern point that I had been on the CDT. So I'm like, oh, that spot where I vomited everywhere is the spot where I'm going to get my triple crown. Because I had hiked the PC
territory. Yeah.
Oh, it was pretty funny. So I had a good laugh when I reconnected my steps, got my triple crown, because I had hiked the PCT in 2019. It was just like, oh, of course.
That's funny.
Yeah. And you guys like poop story?
We love poops.
Zach loves them.
Heard
Zach loves them.
Chance is in the closet about it, but she's a fan.
I just have plenty. That doesn't mean I like
personal
them.
ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've heard too many. Ooh.
No,
I don't have too many.
End up in predicaments.
And mine, this one's not even good, but it's just funny that the only time I shit myself last year was in the JFK airport in New York City.
Really? That's a bad place to shit yourself.
Yeah, it was awful.
How?
Because so I rebooked my flight from that point where I got sick, got back to JFK. I hadn't like barely eaten anything for like 2 days of traveling, and landed in JFK. I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to have a cup of coffee. I'm like, I had enough coffee, and I love coffee like for like 3 days. So I'm like, land in the airport, get a cup of Dunkin'. I'm like, oh, loving this cup of coffee. I'm like starting to feel better, I think. And the whole time when I was throwing up, I never had any problems shitting. Like, I never had diarrhea. It was just like I just threw up once, and then I was just like super weak for what ended up being like 2 weeks. But yeah, and anyway, like that cup of coffee, I was just like, I loving this cup of coffee, and I'm like walking down the stairs to get on the train to go to Brooklyn, and I'm like, that wasn't a fart.
Oh no.
Yeah. So
Are you
it wasn't
in
bad.
shorts? Are you in
I
pants?
had only my hiking gear, so I just had one pair of underwear, one pair of shorts. Just like, I'm just a hiker trash on an airplane. Like, I'm sorry to everyone who's had to be near me, because
Did you stink up the joint?
Yeah, I went to the Enterprise bathroom, threw away my underwear, cleaned up, and then got on that train, and it was miserable. And then that's the only time I like took like actual zeros that wasn't travel days. It was like I sat in that apartment for like 3 days, just so weak. And then luckily Kenny was planning on joining me in Vermont, because so he drove me up to Vermont. He was going to hike with me for like 3 days, and like, thank God, because that was doldrums. Like, that was very doldrums for those like first 2 weeks after had gotten sick. I was like just moving slow. I was sluggish, and like it would have been a lot harder if he wasn't there, because at that point, like, he was he was hiking stronger than I was. So like he was pushing me like mentally, physically, like just in a terrible place. Like it's the only time I've ever hated hiking. Like that was even worse than the Bob Marshall. And it was just because I was dealing with like whatever the stomach bug was. And like I was just so weak. Like each climb was so tough. And then finally, like it was like right when I was getting to the whites is when I started to feel strong again. Thank God. It was like, ooh. So shout out Kenny and shout out JFK Enterprise bathroom.
So what's it like hiking north on the PCT from Kennedy Meadows south? Imagine you're by yourself at that point.
Yeah, there was a good amount of people in the Sierra who had flipped back and stuff. So I actually like ended up hanging out with people and like taking lunch with people. I didn't ever hiked with anybody, but it was more people out there than I thought. Or yeah, it was like people because it was like mid-September. It was like you have to get through the Sierra before October 1st is like what everyone. So it's like people had flipped around and just like trying to get those last miles. So I mean, it was great. I had fucking fantastic weather. I never set up a tent. I cowboy camped every single night. And then same thing, perfect timing. Right when I dropped down into Mammoth and I'm like going to the hot springs, it's sprinkling. So I set up my tent and then it snowed like 3 inches. So like it would have been like 8 inches on the high passes behind me. And I had like Donahue and Silver and like still some passes ahead of me, but they're not the 12,000 footers.
Yeah.
So I'm like just perfect timing. Like enjoyed the hot springs, got snowed on, went to town, got a ride back up, and like it's just beautiful now. It's like I'm just relieved to be done with what's behind me. So
yeah,
it was great. Sierra's the best. Like,
is there a sense at all once you get through the Sierra that not that you're done with it, but you're done with all the really weather-threatening sections of the trail, right?
Yeah.
Like at this point, you're just cleaning up miles.
Yes.
Is that relieving, or does that kind of remove some of the thrill? Like, where's your head at
yeah,
that point?
it was relieving.
Yeah.
It was like, I know like Northern California is going to be cold because I'm out here in October. Like it was cold. I know I'm not going to see a single person. I don't think I did. Like, it was kind of gray, and then it was shitty because I hiked through the Dixie Fire, which didn't exist when I hiked in 2019. So it was like, holy shit, this fire is huge. And it was like sad, and going through Lassen again and seeing like how terrible it was, like super sad. But it was a relief. Like I knew that I had Baden Powell behind me. Like that was like, but like all my big passes are done. Like I'm like, I can fight my way through Baden Powell if I need to. So that was like, yeah, it was a huge relief to get to some Kennedy Meadows North and be like, all right, yeah, let's just put down the miles.
Yeah, because you'd mentioned at the AT stretch that you knew you could make up miles later. Is this the point where you're trying to crush out miles? Like I know that you'd already done Oregon, obviously, but you can also cruise pretty well through much of Northern California.
Yeah, for sure. My friends in New York, every single year they throw a giant party like the week of Thanksgiving. And so like the whole year I'm like, I hope I can make it, Like that's going to be tough. And then like around that time I was like, it's going to be a challenge, but I think I can make it. And I like basically was like, I need to finish on November 19th to get that flight on the 20th, to be there by the 21st, to make this like 3-day party that they do in Atlantic City every single year. It's just like our big reunion every single year. And so I just was like, okay, now I'm pushing myself. That was like the only time all year where I was like cutting into my sleep, like fully motivated, like not sleeping through alarms, like gung ho. Cause I was like, okay, I need to average this much. And then it's just like the end is near, like, let's do this thing. So I just went for it. Like I actually like pushed myself. And it's just crazy to find out that like that's the pace that Legend did the whole calendar Triple Crown, like 32 miles a day. I'm just like so much respect for him and Ish and people who've just like gone for it. And Wahoo, who broke the record last year. So I'm just like, y'all are awesome, because I could hold that through Northern California and the desert, and it took all out of me. And you did that, and the AT was included in that average. I'm like, amazing, incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fully humbled.
Yeah. And what was it like finishing in New Mexico? Any fun stories from the southern New Mexico stretch? Or I guess northern New Mexico. Where are we now? I'm all flipped around. I'm dizzy trying
You're
to keep
keeping track of it better than I am.
Yeah, I know.
My interjections are just, what month are we in?
Yeah. Nothing significant in New Mexico. Yeah, I mean, it was just nice to be going from Vermont to New Mexico and just being like, this is good trail. Like, just nice.
Yeah.
Normal elevation gain. But I mean, going back to the Sierra, do you want to tell us like about like probably the highlight of my whole year besides finishing, besides the terminus? Like, I'm going up Muir Pass, and it's just a beautiful day. Like, and I realized that the whole year I had thought to myself, I think the Sierra Nevada is my favorite mountain range. And like, I would go through the Whites, I would go through the Winds Glacier, Colorado. I'm like, I loved all those things, but like, I'm just like, I think the Sierra is the best. And then I'm in the Sierra, and I realized like, oh, I've pretty much cried every single day at one of these passes just because of how beautiful it is and how blissed out I was. But I'm going up Muir, and I'm like, okay, let's compare now. Now that we're back in the Sierra, let's think about if this is my favorite mountain range. And I'm thinking about like, oh yeah, the Whites were cool, and then Colorado and the Winds, and I was like, oh yeah, and then the North Cascades. And I realized like I was like forgetting about like major beautiful mountain ranges that I had hiked through previously that year, and it all just like in that moment overwhelmed me with just like so much gratitude to be able to experience like all of these mountain ranges like all across America, and then like end up back in my favorite one to finish it off. And I was just like just surrounded by beauty going up this pass, and just like it was just funny to me that I was like forgetting about the North Cascades, you know, which is like so fucking beautiful. And like, I don't know, I just like sat down, just like broke down, because I was just like just my body couldn't handle the amount of like gratitude and joy that I had in that moment of just like, wow, like this has been the biggest, like the most beautiful opportunity, like just like the privilege to be able to experience this thing. And like, I don't know, and then it just like all accumulated in that moment of just like, this is fucking beautiful. Like, I'm so like worth every shit time, every JFK, you know, shit story. Like, it's all worth it in that moment.
Yeah.
Well,
it was beautiful.
Crying on every pass is something you and I have in common.
Yeah. Yeah. How do these bodies handle that emotion? It just wants to boil over. And it's like, I didn't really have that. The winds were beautiful. Like, I had a day in the winds, but like it wasn't until I was back in the Sierra I was just like, oh no, like these mountains do something for me that other mountain ranges don't. Like, and it might be because I did the PCT as my first hike, and it was snowy and beautiful, and like a whole stressful experience going through it in 2019, and just being back there, and it's a clear trail and just like beautiful. I don't know, like, but yeah, it's so special.
Yeah. Do you have any advice to somebody listening to this that wants to do the calendar year triple? Obviously, the route's going to look different every year, just depending on where the snow is. But yeah, I guess general advice to somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps.
I think it's definitely don't stress about the mileage. If you start on the AT and you're behind on your average, like AT's hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be slower. And then, yeah, I guess just budget better for if you do need to fly around. And I don't know. Don't get too obsessed with, I mean, it's the same as through hiking one trail. Like, you can't conceptualize 5 months. It's impossible. Or 9.5 months, 10 months, 7,000 miles, 2,000 miles, whatever it is. Like, just focus on today and the next resupply, and like be on top of your logistics. I think it was more work than I thought it was going into it, being like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, planning. And like Big Gulps, who was in New York, he was my guy sending me packages and like swapping gear out with me when I'm going from desert to alpine. And like, that dude probably mailed me 60, 70 packages last year and received like, so I'm like so grateful for him. Like, big shout out. So like, if you have someone like that, great. If you need somebody, text me. I mean, I could be willing to pay it forward and help you out in that way. Or like, I don't know, I just read Free Outside by Legend, because that book like makes it real. And I don't know, just be open to having a good time and seeing what happens and rolling with the punches. I guess like that's kind of what I learned pretty quickly. Like anytime I would make a plan, throw it out the window. Like, PCT, I'm going to go south, and then nope. Like, let's just be able to adapt like the last minute and switch it up and get to a dry trail if you need to fly across the country because you're miserable. Like, I don't know. I definitely like going back to like the Quadzilla thing and going through the whites and being miserable. I'm just like, I don't know. I so much respect, and I know he didn't love it, but I was just like, I'm just going to choose to, I don't know, find clear trail and end up finding good weather along the way. So
Yeah,
just be open.
All right, we're going to do the requisite question here, which is fuck, marry, kill. AT, PCT, CDT.
Marry the PCT because I could do that trail over and over and over and over again. Fuck, that's tough. I want to say kill the AT, but I loved the AT.
Sometimes you have to kill what you love.
Kill the CDT. Fuck the AT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same question: mountain biking, motorbiking, and backpacking.
Kill motorbiking. Fuck mountain biking. Marry backpacking. Yeah.
So does that mean if you had to pick one sport to do for the rest of the time, sport, activity, whatever you want to call it, are you picking backpacking?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I definitely am stoked to get into bikepacking because it combines my love for mountain biking and long distance hiking. And now that I have my gear dialed to under 10 pounds, I'm like, oh, I can get a sweet mountain bike and like have a great time and like be able to like be agile on my mountain bike while having all my camping gear on me. So I'm like super motivated to get into that. Maybe like, I think I'm just going to piece together the Colorado Trail like in the next few years because I'm living in Moab and can just drive over and do chunks of it.
Yeah.
So that's my goal.
Yeah. Let's do the come out question.
All right.
Thank you to Gossamer Gear, our sponsor. Use code SNUGGLEBUG for 20% off their shelters at gossamergear.com. You're going to reach into Chauncey's sack here and grab a ball.
Mystery question?
Mystery question.
All right.
Like a fortune cookie with a question.
We have, what is your favorite historical period and why?
How interesting. Zach asked AI for these.
Hey,
not
they
now.
mostly worked.
Definitely not now. I mean, it's probably turn of the century, gold rush era. I love John Steinbeck and like Grapes of Wrath and East of Eden are phenomenal books, and I think the mass migration and I don't know, just fascinating. Like the grit involved in getting west, and I don't know. So I think it's phenomenal, just because I love those books so much.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Sweet. I think it's a beautiful note to end on. Well, Anita, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio. Let people know where they should go to keep up with you. You don't seem super regular on Instagram.
Yeah.
I was trying to scoop a lot of the calendar year triple stuff, and it was less posting than some others, I will say.
Yeah. I'm Carson Oliver on Instagram. My last name's Oliver. It's a stupid wordplay on my name. Carson Oliver at Instagram. Like, hit me up if any hikers, day hikers, backpackers, section hikers, people going for the calendar year Triple Crown. Like, hit me up if you have questions. Like I said, I've received so much love, not only from Kenny sending me packages and being there for me, but like Trail Angels and other hikers and just like the whole community. So, if any way I can give back, like, hit me up if I can be an asset to you. Please hit me up. And thank you guys for having me. Like, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys, especially the first month I was on the AT when I was night hiking, because the days are so short. I quickly realized listening to backpacker radio and adventure and bikepacking podcasts, like adventure podcasts, when I'm night hiking really helps a lot, because I'm like, I hate it. I'm spooked. I slow down. And then just like hearing you bring people on and talk about your experiences is just like so validating when I'm doing this thing. I'm like, why am I hiking at night? I can't see anything. So thank you for having me, and thank you for making the show and being there for me when I was all alone in the woods. It's like I had some buds the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, that was nice.
Very nice of you. And you're paying it forward. There's somebody probably borderline hypothermic right now listening to you. So, yeah, you're helping them get through it. But, yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show, I want to cover this one by Kelly. Linda Nana Vanderloop just became the oldest woman to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail. Should be in parentheses probably, because all these definitive most, best, fastest, lowest, whatever-ish, we're just going off of public information. But there could be somebody out there who hiked it at 90 years old and just didn't post it on Instagram or
True.
the internet. So we're going off of what is available, which is probably
Oldest
accurate
known
to reality.
woman.
Yeah,
Like fastest known time.
Yeah, exactly. Oldest known woman. Linda Nana Vanderloop, recently made history as probably the oldest woman to thru-hike the AT, completing the trek at 74 years old with her daughter, Hannah. While she didn't set out to break the record, Linda surpassed the previous mark set by Nan Resinger in 2014, finishing the trail slightly older. Nan was also 74. Linda credits her mostly injury-free hike to her active lifestyle. Fun fact, she grew up on a farm, and still to this day, she still chops firewood every season to heat their cabin. Worth noting that we got an angry email from somebody.
Really?
Because this is not like a traditional northbound hike. They didn't start Springer Mountain hike to Katahdin. It wasn't even really like a standard flip-flop or southbound. They just did it in sections over the course of 12 months, and somebody's like, that's not a thru hike. And then I sent them the link to the ATC website, which shows very clearly that it is. As long as you do all of the miles within a 12-month span, that is a thru hike.
Yeah, just a lot of zeros.
Yeah. So lots of ways to skin a cat, including hiking the AT, and this works. So congrats to Nana and Hannah for completing the AT. Well done. Question of the day. What do you wish was a holiday tradition? Is this yours, or is this Rachel just injecting some holiday
I think it might
cheer?
be Rachel.
Well done, Rachel.
Because I don't know what I'm thinking of. I think what I would love most is if snow would just consistently show up. Like, this is when you're supposed to be here. We're all expecting you. We want you here. Join us.
Would you say that you're dreaming of a white Christmas?
No, because I saw a chart that showed that I'm not going to have one. So I just gave up.
A chart that showed you're not going to have one?
Yeah, it was a map of the U.S. and it showed where there would be snow on Christmas. And it was
we
not
should offer
Virginia.
the context that in no way would a forecast be relevant a month out.
Well, it says I'm not getting snow, so I've written that off, and I'm upset.
I can't wait for it to be like the snowiest Christmas on
I
record.
hope so.
Yeah.
Well, because it said same in New York and in Virginia, no snow. So I think we wait all year.
Do you remember what it was for Colorado?
Snow.
Nice.
So enjoy your white Christmas.
Yeah.
You're right on the line of definitely snow and maybe snow on the chart.
Is this like from a horoscope website? Where did you get this?
I don't know. It was on Instagram somewhere.
Yeah. I know.
It was a great visual. I thought it was well put together.
I think AccuWeather will give like 45-day forecasts, which is hilarious. They're literally just giving you what the average weather is during that time.
They're just out for clicks.
Yeah.
I'll see. I think I probably sent it to Garrett. I'll see if I sent it to him. But yeah, so I just think.
So your holiday tradition is snow.
You get snow. Show up. We want you this month. I don't want you in March. I don't want you in February. I barely want you in January.
Yeah.
But in December, I'm looking forward to you. And when you don't show up, I get sad, and it doesn't really feel as magical. So the tradition I would like is the weather to bend to my will.
Sure. Do you like early December snow?
Yeah, the whole month can snow.
Okay.
It could snow from Thanksgiving. It could snow, like when it snowed earlier a few weeks ago, that was like a little soon.
Yeah.
But I would say mid-November even you could start snowing, and then you could stay snowing through Jan 2nd.
Yeah.
And then maybe like the 3rd to the 10th, you dry up. And then on the 11th, it becomes spring.
Yeah. I assume you're not the one tasked with shoveling
No.
driveways
God,
or sidewalks.
No.
Is that Garrett or is that?
Yeah, Garrett will do it. Or we won't do it.
I had a feeling there was more meat on the bone with that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how consistent he is. I just know it certainly isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
But like I've seen him shovel.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know how well.
Yeah.
How motivated he is with a shovel.
That'd be a good holiday tradition where somebody just comes and shovels your driveway for you and sidewalk.
Yeah, that's what the neighborhood children do.
Yeah.
They come around and you give them a 20.
Yeah. It's not that I even hate the act of shoveling so much, which I do, but to me it's always pointless because the forecast is always like 35 and sunny, and it's going to cook off if you just wait a few hours. Or the flip scenario is you're doing it in the morning while it's still snowing, and in 45 minutes it's just going to be snow covered again anyways.
Yeah, no, that's different in New York. I have vivid memories of it being like nighttime, like bedtime, nighttime, and my dad just being like, Charlie, put your clothes on, grab a shovel, because his mindset was if you didn't shovel it before you went to sleep, in the morning it would freeze and it would be harder to shovel. But fortunately, I am not a boy, and I got past that based on my gender.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I will say sometimes it's nice. It's a good way to wake up. Will wake you up much faster than a cup of coffee, but I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like you're digging one hole and then filling it with dirt.
I think it's enjoyable at times. Like there's something nice about picking up some snow and moving it somewhere else, but I get really bored of it fast.
Yeah. Is that you volunteering to do it?
No.
Okay.
I'll do a bit.
Yeah.
I'll do a little bit, and then once I'm bored, I'm done.
Okay. My desired holiday tradition is, I'm going to give you one that I wish was not a tradition. I'm going to subtract traditions instead. I wish we got rid of the tradition of sending Christmas cards.
Oh. Do you hate receiving Christmas cards?
I hate spending $200 on something that's going to be in someone's house for like 2 weeks. And it just gets turned into trash.
Do you do the photo on the Christmas card? Is that why it's so much?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're sending out 100 of them and then you have to pay to print them, it ends up being nothing.
It's weird that I don't get one from you. You're sending it to 100 of your closest family
Actually,
and friends.
you should give me your address because
you don't have my address.
Jenna's in charge of this. If you haven't gathered, that's why. Anyone who's connected to me is not
Just
getting
tell me
shit.
you hate me.
Yeah, no, this is my wife does everything. But yeah, I don't. It's just something. It's not even the money so much, although the money does factor into it. As it is, it's just something that sits in somebody's house for 2 weeks and then it gets thrown away.
Yeah, but you get to see what people look like.
So I have an alternate idea. I think this is an app. I haven't totally figured it out, but like for the month of December, you opt into this app which will automatically change your phone's wallpaper to be your friend's Christmas card. That way, like when you pick up your phone for that day, it's like, oh, it's Chris and Courtney in Washington. Them and their family is so lovely, and you're looking at it on your phone, and then the next day it rotates to the next person. Something that happens automatically. You're not creating waste. Will be cool to get that fun surprise. And yeah, patent pending. I'm a millionaire now.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the cards. I think there's something nice about them. I think they fit into the decor, and I think the note part is nice along with the photo. I like when there's a photo and you can see the kids growing.
Do you get a note?
I have certain family members who like they'll type like a year in recap, and they'll go through like the 2 kids, and they'll say this year like this is what he was up to, this year he did this, and then they'll go through both the parents and they'll say this is what we were up to.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
Yeah, with my Christmas app, you could do that. Just like a little eye icon on it, and you tap it, and it's like, Charlie weighs 48 pounds today.
I think you're a Grinch.
I'm definitely getting over my Grinch tendencies.
You're getting better, but there's still room for improvement.
To me, this is a waste of money and just creates unnecessary trash. I think there's a digital solution to this that works. But I also do understand Jenna puts the Christmas cards in the tree, which is a nice touch.
Do you have a fake tree?
No.
So isn't the real tree a waste of money too, and something that you'll throw out and create trash with?
The aesthetic of a tree is a million times better than a Christmas card. The Christmas cards don't make smells, although that's a different patent pending. Scratch and sniff, and you get to pick your own scent.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Zach sent us shrimp this year. So, yeah, I'm just full of ideas today. But, yeah, I would subtract that. But I do think replacing it with something comparable is good. Okay, Triple Crown. Is this you, or is this another Rachel?
Yeah, nope, not me.
Did you prepare for this?
No. I read it this morning.
We'll call that a roundup.
Yeah.
This is the Triple Crown of cringy. Let's round up to say either awkward or just undesirable holiday moments.
Yeah.
Because I think cringy is a little too narrowing.
Yeah.
I like the example that she gave.
Yeah, should we say Rachel's first?
Yeah, I just assumed you were going to take it.
Opening gifts with everyone looking at you is what Rachel put.
Yeah. Yes, that is an awkward thing.
I don't think that one's not super cringy for me. I would put my first one as getting or receiving a gift from someone that you did not get or receive a gift from.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because that, like, it feels weird.
Yeah. I think you have to address it as soon as they hand you a gift. You have to just lean into it.
Yeah.
Because if you pretend like it's going to get better for them, then I think the awkwardness lingers longer.
Yeah.
If they hand you a gift and you didn't get anything for them, you have to just say, I didn't get anything for you. Do you want this back?
So sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think that dynamic could be removed. Like if my parents got me something, I wouldn't feel terrible about not getting them something. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the parent-kid dynamic. But if it's anything else, yeah, I agree.
Okay. I don't think I agree with you there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. My cringy. Hold on. I had notes and I'm trying to find them. Okay. The post-gift hug with like a family member that you're not that close with, or like an in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my first one. My second one is, I should have led with this one because I think this is my least favorite, but pretending like you like a gift that you don't like.
Ooh, yeah, there's an art to that. I've seen people, I won't name names, but I've seen people who are not good at that.
Yeah.
And it's cringy for me to watch them. No, my brother. Just have like certain memories from childhood, but it's cringy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be good at faking it.
I think I am good at faking it, but I don't like the feeling of you have to lie. There's not.
Yeah, you have to.
You can't just be like this. I don't want this. But the feeling of pretending like you like a thing that you don't like, that's not good.
Yeah. Here's a good one. And this is even more so when you're with the people. But getting the same gift twice. And then having to do that on the second one.
Yeah.
Because it's even harder than the first one.
Yeah.
For example, there was one year where everyone got my aunt a calendar. And she was like opening her third calendar, and I knew she still had a calendar from me in the pile. And I was like, if I could just sneak under the tree and burn this gift, that would be incredible.
That's funny.
Yeah, so that wasn't great. You got to coordinate there. And then my third one is Christmas cookies that are made by other people. Emphasis on children. Like, you know, when you get sugar cookies as like a gift and like you could tell like a kid decorated it with the frosting.
Yeah.
I find kids to be very sticky and their hands go a lot of places and you can't really track where they've been or like what, like you can't just trust that a kid washed his hands and then put the frosting on the cookie and it was a clean done job,
and
right?
didn't, like sneak a groin touch in
or
the
like
process.
wipe their nose or like drool a little. I don't know. So whenever I see cookies and there's children involved, I'm usually skeptical.
Yeah. That's fair. As someone that has kids, especially a toddler, their hands go in places.
Yeah. I think that applies to like school bake sales too. Anything child food related I want out.
Yeah. My last one, got a few here. This has happened to me a lot where I have to lie to Jenna about like me going to the grocery store to get something when in fact I'm going out to get her gift because it's too late to do it within the Amazon Prime's window. I procrastinate gift stuff. I don't like receiving gifts. I also am not the biggest gift giver. As a family unit, Jenna handles that. So when it's my turn to do it for somebody else, I just like lose track of time and I'm not good at it. I'm sorry, Jenna. Thank you for not divorcing me yet. But there've been many times where like on December 23rd, I'll be like, I have to go out and get orange juice, which is way harder now with kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to sneak out when you don't have kids. You don't have to say anything. You just be like, I'm going to go binge drink. I'll be back in 48. You can do whatever you want. With kids, there has to be like a really strong reason. So I think she can tell that like I'm doing a last minute cleanup.
She could probably see your location and knows you're not at the grocery store.
Yeah. We don't share locations.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I've done that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, well, at least you can get away with it because she doesn't know where you are.
Yeah, and she accepts me for who I am, which is a bad
person. Bad man.
Yeah, she knows. But what happens is we usually make a oath to each other that we're not going to get each other like real Christmas gifts. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but we do stockings. So I'm going out and getting like stockings, her favorite candy and that sort of thing, edible lingerie.
Expensive jewelry fits really well in a stocking.
Yeah, right. Well, so I always break the rule. I always get her something nice, and she's like, "I thought you said we're not doing it."
Yeah,
so
good boy.
Yeah, but I think I put off the stocking part because I'm already subconsciously like, I'm covered. I don't have to do the thing that I said I was going to do. But then I do at the last minute because I panic. Honorable mention is pretending like you're excited to eat turkey for the second time in a few weeks.
Okay. Honorable mention is when Christmas carolers show up at your door and you don't know where to look or like what to do while you're standing there.
Yeah.
And you don't have any cash.
Are you supposed to tip them?
I have no idea. But I would think that I need to give them something back if they're standing there singing. What do you do? You just close the door in their face when they're done? You talk to them? What do you do?
When they're done singing, you say, "Okay," and you close the door.
Yeah, cringy.
Yeah, I know everything except or is expecting a tip nowadays. Some of the places like on Toast checkouts that are like, "Would you like to include a tip?"
Yeah.
It's getting outrageous.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the last place.
I could see that being like a Salvation Army or like a donation thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe they collect for a donation. I don't know.
Maybe they skip my house because they can sense how much of a Grinch I really am.
Yeah, I was young the last time that I've had carolers come to my front door, but I remember being like, I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah, yeah. My last honorable mention is subtly trying to skip a song on the Christmas playlist when there's people around, just because I can't take one more play of I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas.
I fucking hate that song. That's the one part about this holiday season that I'm happy to skip over.
Yeah.
Let's burn that song.
Yeah. I'm very happy that Thanksgiving is so late this year, which truncates the Christmas season, because although Christmas music is growing on me again now that I've got kids, you only have a finite number of playthroughs before you start to lose your mind. And at our house, as soon as you're done eating Thanksgiving dinner, it becomes full-blown Christmas mode, and I just can't handle too much Christmas music. So yeah, certain songs just are not allowed at a certain point. Yeah. That's the triple crown of that. Can't wait to see your guys's on all of our social medias. Mailbag.
Responding to the Patreon episode Chance and Elise did about making money from content. Okay, plug
By the way,
for
I
Patreon.
misspoke. This is not Fancy Feast. I thought it was Fancy Feast.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a plug for the Patreon. If you want to know what they're referencing, it's on there. Well, it took me 6 years to finally join Patreon, but I wanted to hear y'all's convo about this. Great to hear Sauce back on the pod. And Juliana, I know I've told you this privately, but girl, you are literally writing a dissertation. Oh, I know who this is. People go to school for 5 to 7 years to get PhDs, and they do that full time. Just remember that good work takes time. She's talking about mile by mile. Regarding the stress about money, I am not one to give advice as I am not a financially savvy person, but after getting told I don't know who this is. After getting told I have cancer at 37 and that I will likely die from it one day, I hope that I can offer some words of wisdom from the other side of that horrible line I hope none of you cross. You can't outplan life, and you will never be ready for whatever is to come. Saving for one day is a really smart financial strategy, but what if one day never comes? I just want to see 57. Retirement doesn't even register in my mind anymore, and I hope you guys will take that and chew on it a bit. There are no guarantees. I know I'm very privileged to be in a situation where financially my spouse and I can afford for me to work part-time, but the truth is money can't save me. If I get stage 4 cancer and it doesn't respond to treatment, then I will die. Money or not, money is just money. It's not a guarantee that your life will turn out how you want it to, nor is it a guarantee that you will see retirement. Saving for retirement is great, but don't give up all of your now for a future that may never happen. Thank you for the wonderful conversation and being so open with your personal experiences. You are both amazing women. Rebecca. Thanks for the letter, Rebecca.
You know who that is.
Do I know who that is?
Socked.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought she was like 30.
Apparently 37.
Okay.
Well, Rebecca, thank you very much for that beautifully written and I think very important perspective. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think, a good reminder that, our number can get called at any time. I'm doing a coaching call right now with somebody who's like close friend just had a heart attack while driving down the road, and like that was his kick in the ass to thru-hike. He's doing it now at 62 years old, and yeah, you never know when your number's going to be called. So although I do think it's good to plan for the future, I also have to balance it out with living in the present, because we don't know when the future ends. 5-star review. This review is brought to you by Element.
Is it really though? Do you think?
I doubt it, but
okay.
I think they're giving us a free sponsor plug.
Thanks.
Yeah. Best hiking content out there. I'll start by saying that I am not a long-range backpacker yet, just a guy that loves hiking, camping, and the wilderness. This pod is pure gold, even for the non-thru-hiker. Have picked up many tips along the way and always have a good laugh too. Thank you so much to whoever you are, potentially somebody at Element, but probably not. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4. And take a screenshot of that, email us at podcast@thetrek.co, and we will send you a Backpacker Radio sticker, which is basically the only way that you can get it. Either that or you go to a live event or trail days or some sort of blackmail.
Yeah.
Blackmail works really well.
Yeah. So please do that, because it helps with the rankings, and we like when people find us, because then more people can listen.
True that. Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Ben Love, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Burying Outdoors, Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
Friendly Ghost,
Eric Hoffman, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Griffin Hay, Would You Bring Me a Beer, Haley Buckingham,
Dallas,
Liz Seeger, Old Man Murph's Coffee Roasters, that's ommcr.com. Thank you, Paulie, love you. Patrick Ciancialo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo,
and Tracy Trigger. You can follow us on social at Backpack Radio on TikTok and Instagram, at Backpacker Pod on X. Are we doing all of the X alternatives? I know that there's
like Threads and stuff.
Threads, there's Blue Sky.
I've never heard of Blue Sky in my life.
Guys, we don't pick platforms based on political stances. It's mostly just we're a small team, and we just got to get the message out there.
Have you gotten shit for using X?
No, personally not, or not even with the Trek, but I know there's a divide happening right now. I think there's a perception that one team's on one, the other team's on the other.
Oh.
We're team agnostic. We just want to share good backpacking content with you wherever you are.
Yeah, I've never got into the tweeting thing, because then I go back and I read what I've tweeted, and I think that is the stupidest thing ever, and I go and I delete everything.
Yeah, I just love Twitter because it's the best place to get sports updates. I'm addicted to learning about how bad the Chicago Bears are. Subscribe and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Internet.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and view Chauncey's wardrobe malfunction and our sign. You're really selling out for the cause there.
I do my part.
Yeah. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and all the rest.
Woohoo.
Sorry, I know I threw us off.
Goodbye.
There we go.